order now. And so it's what, 6:31? So the first item on the agenda is visitors to be heard. And I know I've got a few people here, and just want to remind you just a couple things about the visitors to be heard at a board meeting and stuff like that. Is we try to limit it to about 10 minutes or so. Partly just so we can also keep on task with the rest of the meeting. So I can see we have a few people that would like to say a couple words. And Ruth?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight, and thanks for your service on the board, some of you for many years. And I know that school boards are not there to micromanage administrations and tell them what to keep and what to drop, but I did want you to hear a coach's firsthand perspective on an incredible individual ADL sports option that's being cut for no valid reasons that I can see from my perspective. I've coached ADL gymnastics for 37 years. Following the end of this year's season, I was informed by the principal and the AD that gymnastics was being dropped. The reasons given were the numbers of middle school teams was dropping, the numbers of ADL gymnasts was low, and the traveling costs were prohibitive. And I wanted to share some facts about this year's team, which I coached. This season, ADL fielded a team of 21 gymnasts, 20 girls and 1 boy who earned his spot, and there was no problem with numbers. It's the same as basketball and more than softball. This season, the team traveled to Milton for one away meet, and then they shared the bus and expenses to travel to Middlebury for their second away meet. So really, we had probably the least expense of any interscholastic team. ADL hosted 6 teams at the ADL State Invitational Meet. This year, South Burlington didn't field a team due to problems finding a coach, and they hope to have a coach again and team again next year. ADL Gymnasts run an invitational, which is a fundraiser that has provided funding for equipment and uniforms, so that's not really an issue. Gymnastics is one of the few individual sports left at ADL besides track and cross country in the fall. Middle school is a time when kids are trying to find their niche and explore. Gymnastics fits into this creative exploratory time for them, and it's a powerful sport with great success over the past 37 years. We're undefeated probably for 35 of them and won our invitational, so lots of success. This year we had 11 new 6th graders on the team, and many had no prior experience in gymnastics, so they just came out to try this new sport. These girls, along with the rest of the team, had an incredible season with growth in gymnastic skills, learning about commitment, gaining core and upper body strength, increasing flexibility, seeing huge gains in their self-confidence and their self-esteem, learning what it is to be a team member, setting goals, and then working hard to achieve them. They learned about sacrifice, getting up at 6:15 in the morning for our practices. They learned about support, encouragement, and leadership. It's a very special and unique sports team, which also provides a wonderful feeder system for the high school. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. There was a girl, Anna, who's co-captain on our team, and she couldn't come, and she wrote something and asked me to read it. So this is on behalf of Anna. Hi, my name is Anna Sharland. This year is my last year as an ADL Charger. Being a competitive gymnast at Green Mountain Gymnastics in Williston, I have developed a love for gymnastics throughout the many years I've been with the Green Mountain Gymnastics team. Once I heard ADL had a gymnastics team, I signed right up. So this is a different perspective. Instead of somebody who's brand new, it's somebody who has talents and who uses the gymnastics arena to showcase her talents, and be appreciated by her peers. I was super excited to join. Since then, I have done 3 years of school gymnastics. Every year, I've had a blast flipping and flying with my ADL classmates. The ADL gymnastics team is a great chance for students from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade to come together and show everyone their love for the sport. Not to mention, it shows kids how to work together as a team. For each year I've done gymnastics, I've had a fear that it will not continue the next year. I've seen kids with love and passion for the sport. I've seen kids who may not be able to do it outside of school, so it's a great chance for them to be able to join the team. Kids are able to show pride in their school with their talent. For me personally, ADL gymnastics has meant so much. I've loved working with the coaches and the students. It felt so amazing to be part of such a great team and be able to make friends with people from every grade. I love seeing everyone's smiling face and positive attitude. Those are memories I'll carry with me. Not to mention the coaches are very encouraging and always give you great advice on what you can do to reach your goals or to get the skill you have always strived for. I want this opportunity to carry on for all students who come into ADL, even though I will not be there to enjoy it with them. So I have a copy of her little letter, and then some pictures to show you. Yeah, we had lots of kids on her. Thank you.
Ruthie, could you leave us those words
Yes,
for the
absolutely, yes.
minutes? We'll just attach them.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And then, I don't know if Megan's gonna speak, but Megan was a coach. First she was an ADL gymnast, then she was an Essex High School teammate, and then she was a coach up until she started having children 5 years ago. So she helped coach. I think she's here for support. And Michelle has a daughter on the team, the other co-captain. I think she was here for support. And Ashley couldn't be here. She's out of the country. She coaches the high school team, but I know that she contacted some of you about concerns for a feeder program.
She sent an email.
Right.
And then Hope was an ADL gymnast, then a high school gymnast, and she's South Burlington High School's coach. So I think she's.
Yeah, I'll say that.
And she doesn't usually talk, so it's really,
Okay.
it's amazing.
Yeah, no. Piece of paper. So yeah, I just wanted to be here to support Ruthie, and it's been an amazing program, and I would hate to see it dropped. So I just wanted to share a couple things about gymnastics and what it's meant to me and why I think it's important to continue on. So there's just so many reasons why I think it's important to continue to offer gymnastics at ADL. Gymnastics is a very unique sport, and there's so many different developmental skills kids learn. Not only physically, they learn strength, flexibility, balance, and body awareness. Social skills is a huge one. Really having to listen to your coach, especially for safety reasons, be patient, remembering to work hard, learning to communicate, following the rules of gymnastics and the codes. And intellectually, I think you take a lot in learning gymnastics. You learn how to organize your ideas, organize routines in your head, and really, truly learn how to problem solve. And I think one of the biggest ones is focus and concentration, which is key in gymnastics, which you can imagine. Emotionally, especially for these kiddos, there's a huge emotional part to it. So I think kids really do learn a lot. They learn how to grow their self-esteem and their self-confidence, having to get up on a balance beam in a leotard when you're that age. Just imagine, and I think they learn a lot about how to be comfortable with themselves and how to express themselves. One of the biggest things I think I learned is, when things don't go right, you know how to brush it off and move on and try again. So I think all these kind of skills translate into life later on too. So ADL's gymnastics was a huge impact on my life. It taught me so many of these life skills. I think that one of the biggest things I cherish about my memories is the friendships I developed. I mean, I'm still great friends with Megan and so many other people, and they continue to be my support system. So club gymnastics, a lot of people say club gymnastics, is always an option, but it really isn't for a lot of families. And I know growing up for my family, it definitely was not an option. I think it can cost a club gymnast, I don't know if my numbers are right, but anywhere from $150 to $500 a month. Off the top of my head, it's probably in that range, and for my family, that wasn't an option. So I'm so blessed that I grew up in Essex and was able to go through the recreation program, have Ruthie there, and then head on to high school. So, like I said, lastly, I think ADL gymnastics is a great feeder program for the high school. It's one of the most successful varsity sports at Essex, and I would hate it to affect their program as well. And this is coming from a South Burlington coach, so just to keep that in mind. Anyways, just would love the board to reconsider cutting gymnastics. Is truly a great sport, and I think young girls and even young boys can really learn a lot from it. So thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have any words to share with us?
My name is Michelle, and I'll just say real quick, I agree with everything that they said. My daughter has been doing gymnastics for several years, so she was a club gymnast like Anna. There aren't that many. I think Anna and Jenna were the only two club gymnasts on the team. The rest of them are just girls that came and tried out. Some of them may have experimented with gymnastics when they were younger. but then didn't continue on with it for whatever reasons. And I think for Jenna, and she used to go and watch the older girls that were several years older than her, and she, just it inspired her to continue on and do it, and it was just fun to go and watch and see the camaraderie between the girls. And I have an older daughter too that Ruth tried to get on the team, but she wasn't into it as much, and she did go and she experienced it a little bit, but it was a great team back then even. I wish that she had gone through with it, but just wasn't her sport, so. But it was a really good program, and I think that all the girls, 20-something girls, I think basketball teams, like you said, just don't, they're small too, and I have daughters that play field hockey, and, there's only so many kids on a field, so I think that the numbers here were the same as any of those other teams. And it's nice to go to the ADL Invitational and see all the other schools that are still participating in gymnastics and have all these groups of girls, and it's sad to think that if one goes down, it can have a trickle effect, a domino effect, and so, thank you.
Thank you guys very much for those words of support for gymnastics. On a personal note, I know my daughter's in 6th grade, and she was actually intent on going out for gymnastics. The sad thing is that when she found out what time it starts in the morning, she decided against it. Unfortunately, as far as the board's concerned, this is not normally something that we would take as to basically overturn or reverse a decision made by a principal. So I hope you are still in contact with Lori and discussing things with her.
No, I think it sounded like it was a done deal, so I think that's why
Okay.
I decided to come this way.
Okay.
Just to make you aware that program was.
Thank you.
Can I ask Ruth a question?
Sure.
You're retired from teaching gymnastics at ADL, right?
Retired from physical education.
Right.
And health.
But,
I did coach this year. Yes.
and were you going to coach next year if the program was still running?
If it was still running, but maybe I could also find somebody to take my place too. So.
Okay. Well, thank you guys very much for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yes, make sure you get all the things that you want to take back with you again.
Everything else.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Okay. Well, next up on our agenda is the board reorganization. So the first thing we do in this case is I turn the meeting over to Superintendent.
So at this time, I'll open up nominations for the election of the next chair of the PC board.
I will nominate Mike Smith as the chair of the Prudential Committee.
In a second.
Michael Smith has been nominated by Marla, seconded by Jen. Any further nominations? Ready to call a question? All those in favor of Michael Smith as the next chair of the Prudential Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, so
Vote
that,
for himself, can
He can. I thought you didn't, though.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
I was
Was
being-
it abstaining?
I guess I was
So
abstaining.
3 yes and 1.
One absent. All right, so that means then I take control again.
Mm-hmm. Power.
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, I was hoping I wouldn't have to figure this out. I was hoping that Dave would be here, but because he was the vice chair. So I guess in his absence, I will start with. Do we have any nominations for the vice chair?
I nominate Dave as vice chair.
Any seconds on that one?
You don't want to do it?
He's doing such a good job.
Huh?
He's doing such a good job.
Oh, I'll second that, yeah.
And Tim second. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there any discussion anything that Dave would like to offer? Nope, nothing in his absence. Anyone want to speak for Dave? No? All right.
He's a great guy. He did a great job.
All right. So, all those in favor of Dave Reister as vice chair, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, passes 4-0. The last position on the board is as clerk. Marla has been serving in that position for the last 2 years? 3 years.
This is my third
It
year.
is 3, okay. I couldn't
And
remember if it was
I'm
2 or
okay
3.
doing it again.
Okay,
Ah,
I have no problems doing the clerk.
so
As long as Denise stays with us.
yeah, I will say it definitely makes a difference having somebody else taking notes, so that the person filling the clerk role can participate in the meetings, but is still, responsible for the content that are in the meeting minutes. So I will nominate Marla as clerk of the Prudential Committee.
Did either of you want to do it, or?
Well, we can talk about it after.
Yeah.
Well, whatever, yeah. One thing I did want to do
Oh.
was, so that's why I want to talk about it, because if we think it would be the clerk's job to do this, then maybe I would want to do it, right?
Okay.
One of my ideas was to try and put out more, kind of instantaneous communication from the board, like right after meetings, so by posting stuff, by putting stuff on Front Porch Forum, like that, we would kind of
Okay.
agree on at the end of the meeting, so
Right, So
I'd be
as
willing
a-
to do that if the board's interested in it, and then if we think that would be like the clerk's job, or I could just do it as like an extra thing.
I don't know, I'm hesitant to tie it in directly to the clerk's position at first, but I certainly would love to give it a try as far as an activity, I mean, not an activity, but as something that we can follow up with after each meeting, is to have someone do something like that, to
Yeah.
post a meeting results, kind of a recap of what happened.
The big thing I do as clerk is Denise or Ben do the minutes, then they send me a copy, and I give them changes if I notice
Like
something.
other notes or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that does get a little time consuming, the
Mhm.
back and forth. So if somebody wanted to do what Tim is suggesting, I think that would be great. I think the more
Keep it separate.
communication we do,
Right,
but I agree, I don't think it has to be part of the
Okay,
clerk
great.
position. We could make him the official communicator.
that's right.
yes, team.
So, I think that makes sense to keep with the clerk,
Okay.
the
yeah, that's
the
great.
current clerk type duties.
Yeah,
And then that would be, that's something separate, we'll
yeah.
kind of flesh out a little bit.
Great.
All right, so I have, there is my nomination of Marla as the clerk,
I'll second it.
and Jen as the second. And is there anyone else, or would anyone like to nominate someone else besides Marla? I mean, we have nobody ever running against anybody in any position on this
But you
board.
have a full
Hmm.
board now.
I know,
Welcome
it's
to
great.
Tim Kemmerer.
Okay, any discussion or any further discussion on the clerk position? All right, then all those in favor of Marla as the Prudential Committee clerk, say aye. Aye.
So you don't have to do that 301.
All right. Okay, the next positions are the 3 CCSU board reps. This past year, it was I, Marla, and Dave. Generally, the practice has been the chair and the vice chair, and then a third person. Marla's been great on the SU board, so I would definitely like to see her continue. Do we have to put nominations for each of the 3?
You can
Or is it
elect
just?
three, just select three, so.
Well, so I mean, I
you
guess
can do
I-
a slate.
Yeah,
you
just
know,
nominate
The
these
chair
3 people
is-
as,
Yeah,
okay,
the chair is always a given,
okay.
and then
Now,
doesn't have to be the vice chair.
right, and that was gonna be my next question is, I mean, I know on occasion Dave's had timing issues with work lately, so I don't know if it makes sense to have him continue on the SU board.
I would
Simply because of the
think- I
timing.
would think Tim or Jen should be on it.
Mm-hmm,
And I think last year you had mentioned we have a lack of women's perspective at the CCSU level. So I
Right.
don't mean to say you should do it over Tim, but if he has an interest. But also you need the time. We're doing more CCSU meetings than ever before. It's becoming a more important board. I mean, that's our basic board that hires and does the superintendent's evaluation. And we got our work cut out for us with what's going on at the state level. So it is gonna be a lot of
Yeah.
work. I see the next year or 2 years, it's not gonna be something where you just come and show up and do policy and everything's done for you. It's gonna take a lot of homework and some work for this. So, depends on how much.
they're generally on Mondays. They may be, did we have is the
You have
calendar
it,
in
yeah.
here?
You have the calendar.
If you have the,
Was it SU on it?
Yeah, the SU's on here, it's the pink.
it's really tiny though, I thought,
So
isn't it?
there's 6 meetings, and September 29, October
Okay.
27th, see it?
Yep. got
November
it.
17th, so there's 6 meetings,
And those are Mondays.
and yes,
And it-
except I think that May 26th one is the day after Labor Day, so I think that one's
Okay.
a Tuesday.
Right. We've reduced the number of carousel meetings, I think.
Oh, yeah.
We used to do
So
3,
just one.
at least 3 a year, it seemed like,
Yeah,
and I think we're down to just 1.
one. But we'll
Um,
see how, you know.
time-wise, The meetings, I mean, I'm just give you the straight up, is that generally the meetings go 2.5 hours in
Yeah.
length, you know.
At 6:30, we usually do it in the.
You start at 6:30,
We try
They're
to be
generally
done
right
by
here.
9.
And they're typically here.
yeah, we try to, like I said, they're about 2.5 hours, so 9 o'clock. But as in any other board meeting type setting, they could go long,
Yeah, right.
so.
So the two
Um,
probably big topics for the coming year will be, if H 883 passes, the discussion about creating expanded pre-K-12 school districts, and other legislative work. Also, Act 153 passed /156, where you heard at annual meeting, we had to move all of our special education costs into the SU budget. So further, we've done everything with the exception of our teachers. So that's the next piece that has to be negotiated. So those will be
Special ed teachers.
all special ed
Yeah,
teachers,
special ed,
Special
yeah.
ed
which would
teachers, not.
create a
Right.
new bargaining unit. So we've been trying to approach it through a waiver.
Right.
And that's where we are with that. So that's still sort of unfinished work.
There's one other piece too, Tim. The superintendent evaluation
Oh, yeah.
and everything is done through CCSU and the annual work plan. The goals are set by the CCSU board.
Yeah.
And we're trying to keep it on track because for a few years, the superintendent didn't get an evaluation.
Yeah.
This year, I think we've got it back on track for Judy to have her official evaluation. So there's a little bit of work at that at
Right.
CCSU.
Yeah.
That's gonna be one of the first things that we're gonna hit on right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To finish up this school year, I guess.
Mhm.
Is that the right term?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, I mean, I definitely would see Marla and I, and
I'm happy to
Either
do
of you
it.
has
unless
an
you- it doesn't-
interest, more so than the other. I mean, you guys can, if you want to thumb
What else
wrestle
am I gonna get
for
signed
it,
up for is the
I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, teamwork.
But otherwise,
Well, if you
Either-
wanna do it, then your workload will be less on the task teams, I mean, nobody's.
right, we'll distribute things
Yeah, that's a good way to
appropriately,
Yeah, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But, so, either one of you have
Yeah.
more of a preference than the other? I mean,
It's,
if this
I
were a
mean,
cartoon, there'd be
I'd
like a
like to
little,
do it.
little bar above each of you, that one would be a little higher and I'd be able to quickly be able to tell. But
I'd hit the buzzer
No.
faster.
that's right,
Yeah, I would be interested in doing it.
okay. I mean, the only,
So-
like I said, as Marla brought up, the other incentive for Jen would be to increase our female attendance at the meetings for
Right.
another
do you
perspective,
think
but,
that's important?
yes.
So,
Yes, there's only 2 female members, right? You and Martha.
Unless the Union 46 board puts a representative.
Right.
Send somebody else.
They've
Yeah.
got a new representative, so they'll have somebody new.
Mhm.
So,
But I don't have,
I mean, I'm more than happy to do it as well for that specific reason, and it'd be interesting. So, I don't know.
well, I guess I would like to, I mean, I don't know. I can make a motion for
A
3, but,
nomination.
You were on the Union 46 board,
Yeah,
so if we have to do that discussion with legislature, that one district, you'd probably have a lot of knowledge to bring to us from the high school board work you've done in the past.
yeah.
That's the only other
Sure.
thing,
Yeah.
I'm torn.
is, I guess I'm leaning more towards Tim, in just
Yeah,
because of some of the discussion that's gonna happen this next year. That's all. So, I guess I would make a motion. My motion is to have the board chair, myself, Marla, and Tim serve on the SU board as the board reps. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other arrangement of 3? Anyone has a suggestion?
Other-
That would pretty much come from you, Jen.
No.
All right, then all those in favor of myself, Marla, and Tim serving as CCSU board reps, say aye.
Aye.
4-0. Okay. Sorry, I'm taking my notes. All right, all of our task teams. Kind of the easiest thing to start with first is those folks already serving on a task team. Would you like to remain on the team that you're on? So Jen, you've just started on communications, and I kind of like that one, but would you like to remain on that team? Or does anyone else have an interest of serving on communications?
Are we on it together, or was it just one?
Well, it's generally what we've done is had one primary person, and then a second person is the backup. We just generally haven't sent 2 people to the communications.
No, that's where you were, you could stay there.
Yeah.
That's
Okay. So let me.
Congratulations, David.
Hey, David.
You're now vice chair of the PC.
Yes. Okay, so we're good with that one. Leaders at work is currently myself and Marla.
Who's staying on communications, Jen?
It's gonna be Jen as the primary rep, and I'll be as the backup. But Jen will never miss a meeting, so it won't be a problem. So, okay, leaders at work is currently myself and Marla. Because of the work that the executive committee does from the SU for a lot of things that are in leaders at work, it makes sense that I remain on there, and Marla's been fantastic with some of the things that have come out of that one. So I would suggest she remains on it if she has the time.
I have the time.
So, and unless somebody else wants to pop in on that one, I think we're good there. So I think to keep myself and Marla on Leaders at Work. Policy, we have Dave and Jen currently serving on that one. Meetings wise, four or five meetings a year or so.
I mean, a little more than that.
But
It's once a month.
Yeah,
Is it once a month? You are-
But we, you know, yeah. But,
well, as it's actually worked out.
right.
It's-
Well, the thing was, like for the second week in a row, or second month in a row, our meeting's the same meeting as same as negotiations.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, just, yeah, I think
So
just
it's,
like
you know,
cancel.
yeah,
So
it's
one of
getting-
us, you know.
It's getting bumped
yeah,
on that.
So
Yeah.
each of us probably only attends really 5-6 meetings a year.
Right.
Maybe.
And I like that one, so I'd like to stay on that.
Yeah, I would say that. Unless somebody else wants it. Tim?
No,
Okay.
Congratulations.
Are we catching up on the like 5-year cycle that we were like
Right.
5 years out on the reviewing the policies?
Mhm.
Like, did we catch up? Over the
We've
last
done
3
a
years?
lot. We're
getting there.
from A, we're at J,
We're in J.
yeah.
And sometimes B.
And
Yeah.
sometimes we revert
Right.
back to
Yeah.
B.
Down a
And
little
B.
bit over this policy B20
Right.
and some wellness.
And the wellness.
Yeah.
There were some
Current events
things
will
that
always
came
be-
from state
Yes.
legislature and some of the legal stuff that had to take priority.
Yeah,
So,
All right, so we'll have Dave and Jen remain on that one. Negotiations. Because, I'm not sure how to handle this particular one, simply because, we started the negotiations a couple months ago. However, the folks on the board, we really haven't done a lot of discussion as far as what's being negotiated. Most of the heavy lifting has been done by a smaller group of the negotiations team working out a lot of the boilerplate language that's in a unified contract. So, with that being said, I'm finding my time is being spread very thin, and in all honesty, if I could give up negotiations, I wouldn't have a problem with that. And I don't know about how you feel
Well,
about
I'll
that,
stay
Dave.
on it. If
Okay.
I'm listed on, right? All right. Yeah, if I'm-
Yeah, you currently it was Dave and I,
You can put me
but,
on for it. You can put me on for it because I didn't go on any other ones yet. So put
Okay.
me on and figure out
I mean, like I said,
how
it's,
to
it,
Go there and listen.
go. Yeah.
yeah, that will be time, it could potentially be time consuming, so that's good that you would
Yes.
be on it.
Yeah.
I've got back on the board
Gotta get
3
done.
years ago and I was just surprised, we're doing it 1 year at a time. They're doing
No, I know there was a couple of things that drove that a little
Yeah.
while ago,
Yeah.
and so maybe
and there are a few
we'll-
things that are continuing to
still
drive.
driving it,
Yes.
right? So
They may
okay.
not be the same things, but there are some pretty significant things.
Yeah.
And I do expect in the next, in the next month and a half, that's probably gonna be quite a bit of time. Or at least a greater increase in time than what we've had so far.
I'd say next week it's gonna begin,
Yeah.
next Wednesday
Yeah.
is a meeting that begins at 5:30. And probably will go until 8:30.
Yeah, so when are the meetings? That's
So there's a list of dates that Ben has just sent out, so he'll send them again, cause he's in the process of trying to get it scheduled. It's been difficult right now because the boards are reorganizing at the same time. But next Wednesday is an important meeting, it's our last small group meeting. And the reason why this small group meeting has occurred is because we've taken 3 different teachers' contracts and worked with the association to create a unified contract, so we'll have one contract now moving forward. And there was just a lot of time spent in understanding the language and why some language was chosen from one contract and ensuring that people have things in place. And now we're down to like the last 3 articles that will really require the board's negotiations.
Right.
We
And-
just did the language.
And as far as that process has gone, pretty much all the feedback has been, it's been a pretty good discussions and moving forward on that. It's just, it takes time, you know.
We're the
Right.
only one, supervisory union in Chittenden County that doesn't have a unified contract. And we took this step so we can align ourselves for the Act 153 transfer of our special educators.
right.
So that was like a step in the direction to ready ourselves for the next step.
Yep.
That's the background. We'll get you caught up real fast.
Okay, I just can't make next Wednesday, but after that, it's okay.
Maybe
But
you
as long
can
as
make
Dave
at
can make
least next Wednesday.
Yeah. Before I forget, did you, in coming in to do the oath and stuff like that, did you also have the discussion about getting a CCSU
We're getting on it.
email?
I'm
Okay,
gonna get it
Ben
from
is,
you.
Ben is making all those
Okay.
arrangements now.
because then we can get
It's only
all the dates forwarded out to you through
Right.
that. Okay.
It's only been 24 hours.
No, I know. If I don't ask now, it'll
We have it done in an
That's
hour
right.
after we were elected.
Yeah, I got names, I got, right there, look at that.
I can only hold so many thoughts in my head, otherwise
Be
a
able
new
to
one
dig out
comes
my
in and
old one,
something has to go
actually.
out, so.
Probably just slide the old plastic in there.
That's right. Well, we thought the same thing when Jeff subbed on the board last year.
Right.
Or at the end of this term. They made up a new one for him. They hadn't saved his old
The old
ones.
ones.
Well,
I'll
I
bet
guess
it's
it's
the same
something
people
to
over and
start
over.
to think
Well,
about a recycle bin.
That's, yes. See, my name you could probably use for another board member.
And then that's like the wall of board members.
The wall
That's
of
right.
fame.
In case you come back, oh, they just take it off the wall.
That's right.
They just keep moving, they take when your name gets down to the bottom, they move you back up to the top, and now you're back on the board.
Okay.
That's it. Okay, and the last, I think it's the last one, is, that's specific to the PC, is the EJ Parks and Rec representative. That sits on the advisory council.
Jen is on 2 committees, and with Dave and Tim doing negotiations,
Mm-hmm.
I would be glad to do it, unless somebody has their heart set on doing it.
And do you have the time, because you're also on the SU. So as far as, I mean, there is,
Yeah, I'll be fine because we only, LA Law meets a different night than policy,
okay,
and EJRP is the last Thursday of the month. That doesn't I don't think that has a conflict with anything.
I don't think so.
okay. Oh, yeah, you missed that part. We decided to put myself, Marla, and Tim on the SU board. Well, that's what we meant when you walked in and said congratulations.
Oh,
So
they
you're
meant
not on the
that-
SU.
oh, I thought they meant that I was
No, we
vice
did,
chair.
vice
Oh.
chair. Okay, so we've identified everyone for the task teams. Now, the rest of these things, the rest of the items on here,
That you can do in one slate. You could just read your orgs as far as appointing legal counsel firm of Wells and Leopold,
is that in here?
appointing, senior orgs, appointing the collector of taxes to be the Village of
right
Essex
page.
Junction. Until at some point that might change.
There we go.
Set the monthly meetings by adopting the board calendar, and then we can always amend it after all boards have looked at it and see where you might want to make changes.
Okay.
Authorize the superintendent. Do you want me to just keep going? Or you
No,
want-
I was gonna say, the last thing though, the one thing that we haven't really identified though, is the planning day. And that was part of this set of items. And so do we wanna identify that
That we
now.
can pull out, can't we?
Or we could pull it, I mean, either one, we have to take the time to talk about it anyway,
I
so.
would take and pull it out and we do one motion for all the others.
Yeah, we don't even need a motion for that, that's just.
No, yeah.
That's the summer, you're talking about like the summer meeting or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, that, we can just do
Exactly.
at the end.
Yeah, no, and that's fine, I just,
Yeah.
was trying to do them all at once, or, you know. Okay, so how would this motion go?
I move that we appoint the legal counsel as Leopold, I'm looking for the name, Wells and Leopold. Also, have the appoint the collector of taxes as the Essex Junction Village of Essex Junction. Set the monthly meetings for the second Monday, primarily the second Monday of every month. And authorize the superintendent to accept, administer external grants and funds. Grant the authority to pay the bills. Establish the newspaper of record as the Burlington Free Press. And accept the, approve the members' acceptance of VSBA Code of Conduct. And approve the annual meeting minutes.
I have a comment on that code of conduct.
I have it here.
Can we pull it, or? Okay, forget it.
Oh.
Did you have a question about it?
No, it's
Yeah,
like-
we can talk about it after a second.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I'm
let's
saying.
just talk about it and then we can just decide, yeah.
Okay, so, do we have a second for the motion made by Marlo?
Yes, I second that.
Second by Tim. Okay, so is there any discussion of any of the items in this motion?
Here's the code of conduct coming along. It sounds
There we
like
go.
Tim has a question.
Yes, so there's one thing on the code of conduct, which I just wanted to emphasize. My intent, my ideas about it, which wasn't necessarily clear on here, and I have to remind myself, was, and this is because of things that I've seen happening on more the town boards. And I remember this, we talked about this on U46 when I was on it before, and I always felt like we did a really good job on U46 on this. I mean, actually, I think most of the SU boards have really done a good job on this, so this, this is, but I just wanted to really say it didn't really say in here, and I just remember this, is, that we all agree to, that when we make decisions, as a board, you make decisions as a board, and so that we all agree, and then we vote when we make a decision, that we all agree that after we vote, that we will support the board decision, and which kind of the intent being that you don't go then later if the vote didn't go your way, and now you go outside the board, out to the public, and start doing whatever you're doing, which is against the decision that we just made as a board. Basically, it's like, so it was kind of covered in here. I mean, I think it's under like the ethical standards. It's really about like, ethics and like, but it didn't really exactly say that one in here.
It doesn't say it exactly, but under act within the scope of my official role, act only as a member of the board and not assume any individual authority when the board is not in session, unless otherwise directed by the board.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, and the difference is like, and I've seen, there's been board members doing this, like they vote and then that somebody is in the minority and then they go drum up support with the public, which is not any kind of official act. You can go drum up, you can go publish information and, sort of against a decision,
But it's not correct, it's not ethical.
It's not ethical, yeah,
Right.
That was just my point, is that if we all agree that we're gonna go along with the board decisions, even when we're talking about it and when we vote on it, that it doesn't go, the way that we do it. I mean, I think the boards have always done a good job at this. This
Right.
isn't a particular problem in our, in the SU, but I just felt like it was good to say it, like,
Yeah.
so that, like, it's kind of like some of the meaning behind some of this, that's all.
Right, so basically not to speak a counter to a decision that was reached by the board,
Right.
is essentially
There's
that.
can say-
another piece too, it was always accepted that the chair would be the only spokesperson of the board, which is very important unless they're out of town and then the vice chair
Right.
speaks for the board or the
Or
superintendent.
the chair, or the board says that, yeah, it's okay, you can
Yeah,
speak
Right,
for the
yes.
board on this, okay, yeah, I yeah. Yeah, that's good,
Okay.
so, okay.
So, any other discussion? I think that pretty much covers it, right? So then all those in favor of this very large motion of items that Marla made, say aye.
Aye.
did we have a second?
Yes,
I did.
Tim,
Oh, you did,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
I was paying attention.
Well, I wasn't,
Yes,
5-0.
5-0. Okay, so that takes care of all but one piece for the board reorg items, and that's to attempt to identify a planning day. Generally, we're quiet during the summer, so, we're looking toward July or August, unless there's a preference to get this out, to start the ball rolling of what we're looking at for the year ahead, even sooner than that. I know it's a matter of scheduling for people as well.
When's the June meeting?
I don't think we have one in.
Yeah. June is
June
our
8th.
carousel.
Oh, it's a carousel is June 9th.
Mm-hmm.
June 8th, it says.
Oh, it should be June
Oh,
9th.
wait, that's 15.
That's next
Yeah.
year.
That's the next
Right.
one, okay.
Right. June 9th is our next meeting. I'll just share that the other two boards have decided to plan earlier rather than later in the summer. So U46 is actually having their planning day on the 18th of June, and Westford is actually having their planning day in May. They're going to plan a half a day before the SU May meeting on the 27th.
see, the hard thing is with the way the superintendent's evaluation is laid out now, timing-wise, part of their evaluation is based upon the annual work plan, which is the goals that CCSU sets. So we've already started the goals for this upcoming year. So when I was thinking of annual planning day, I have a problem with it because now we have to have this, if we've got certain goals, we've got to get it into CCSU before CCSU's May meeting, the end of May. I think it's May 24th.
May 27th, I think it is.
So
sounds right.
I'm unsure of how we're gonna use the annual planning day, unless it's for more training, or if there's,
I got tons of, I could do a whole day on things.
yeah,
That's just,
So
No,
I think there's a lot of stuff we could do that, I mean, well, I guess I would just ask this board is, for during the annual planning day, I mean, I would kind of want to do at least some of it, or we could do two, but, if there's stuff that we need, if we need Judy there, then we can have Judy there, but I think we should do some just as the board.
Correct.
And maybe that's already
And
what we do, but that's a good time for us to be like just the board, to like kind of.
Yes, and that is something that we've, at least the last 3 planning days have been that. They've included part of the time was with the superintendent, and then another good chunk of that
Great.
time was just the,
That's a good thing to have, 'cause
board.
that's, okay, that gives us that time.
and we've usually been able to do it in the morning by noon, have breakfast, and
Yeah.
be done by noon, but I can honestly tell you, I cannot meet on Mondays or Tuesdays or Thursdays. It has to be a Wednesday or Friday.
And it has to be between this time, and it can only be this distance away from my house.
Better than anything for me, or Fridays, I don't know about other people. but-
Okay, so, I mean, Fridays are, Wednesday and Fridays are fine for me.
It just depends if we're doing it in the summer or not, because Fridays don't work for me during school here,
Right, okay,
so.
so Fridays don't.
No, I would
work
wanna
for
do it in
Jen.
summer, I'm out of town June 19th to July 3rd.
Well, we expect you to change your vacation
I
plans,
gotta,
right?
yeah.
What date did you
Tickets
say,
on
Tim? June?
June 9th, the last 2 weeks of June, basically,
Okay,
June
yeah, see,
19th, right
I'm-
after school until July 3rd,
I'm very similar to that
in case anybody.
to that time frame as
And
well,
you
Oh,
can't
okay.
And so that's why I
do it
was-
in school.
I can't do Fridays during school.
during the school year.
Yeah, I'd do it Friday during the summer, I think would be great.
Right. Well, one of the other things I've been I don't know about you guys, but I've been thinking about how the planning day is even in May, even if we did in May, I mean, it's still almost too late for the next year, in the sense that the goals have kind of been established. I hadn't even had time to really contemplate a lot of things for the next period of time. And some of my mind is thinking that the planning needs to be more broad than what we have been currently doing, which was just for a year, to extend the planning for a little bit longer period of time.
Like, start doing strategic,
Yes,
some
a little bit more
strategic planning.
of that kind of thing. So it sounds like the end of June is not good for two of us. It's April 9th now, 10th now.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I mean,
Does
I think
May-
I think it's fine to do it. I mean, I like doing it in the summer because then it's like you can take the whole. I never saw it as part of the. If June carousel is, I mean, I saw it written on there, is like school action plans. That's like kind of the detail. That's,
Mhm.
you know, the admin's gonna come with all their detail of the school action plan. I mean, I think something has to happen in May before that, but we'll talk about that after. But this board planning day, I think, is actually not about that kind of stuff. It, you know, to me, the topics are more like, what do we want to do? What do we want to do with the whole year? What new thing do we want to start doing? Like strategic planning. And then how do we want, but then we talk about how do we want to do that? Do we want
Right.
to weave it into every month of the year, make it a thing? Okay, what
From-
things do we want to do during this whole next year? Not the detail of those action plans, which are already going. Even the SU board
Right,
doing
from that perspective, I agree.
superintendent's action plan, right?
You know.
It's like not about that stuff. It's more like, how do we want to
Right.
do our stuff? What did we like about, we reflect on last year, those of us who were here,
Right.
you know, and say, well, what do we think, yeah, it didn't work so great, what can we do better on? Okay, then that's all the kind of topics, that's like setting the framework for
Right.
all the meetings of the next, you know, school year. That's why I think it's good to do in the summer, because now you finished all the ones from the last year, gotten all that stuff, you know, done, and then that's the break, you know, between until you start over in August.
Okay. Well, first thing that's coming to my mind right now as far as timing goes is, it sounds like the end of June is not great. I don't know how the beginning of June is, but that's, you know, that
Jen
goes, the
can't
first 2
do
weeks
it.
is still school going on, so then we'd be limited to a Wednesday. Otherwise, something, you know, starting in the second or third week of July, which I'm fine with. I mean, that's, as far as I know right now, I'm
fine,
pretty much
too.
wide open.
I do have stuff in July, so the earlier in July would be better for me.
Okay. When's the 4th?
4th is Friday, first
Friday.
Friday.
It's the first Friday, okay. I mean, I don't have any long-term plans, you know, extended time out, so, the 11th of July would be a Friday, which would be the Friday after the 4th.
Friday, July 11th.
Is that sounding pretty decent for everybody?
My vacation, my time set, we're debating, so
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 that
we'll
one's,
go for it, and, you know, if it changes,
okay, so yours,
Yeah.
okay,
you know.
then we'll set as,
I'll know soon, but right now I have no, so I don't know what to say.
so
Full day.
tentatively with,
Otherwise, I can date, yeah.
with mild confidence, July 11th
And what are we saying, in morning?
in the morning.
Do morning, like 8 to 12.
Location to be determined yet?
And sometimes we meet by 7:30 to have continental breakfast or something.
Right.
Oh, great.
The past couple of years, we've done it at the inn at Essex.
Big treat,
It's very nice.
very nice.
It's a nice atmosphere. All right, do we need to have a motion for that day? Or is that just, I mean, it's just a decision.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just we just kind of all kind of came to that agreement.
Yeah, it's consensus.
All right, good. All right. As long as there's nothing else left in the reorg that I missed. Okay, good. All right, let's move on to the principal's reports.
I'll start with ADL. ADL script spelling bee champion Isabella Petrucci came in 3rd place in the Vermont B. She made it 24 rounds, and this is her 2nd year placing in this event. They just had the 44th annual ADL basketball tournament, and it was a huge success. She wanted to thank parents Duncan and Karen Harvey for being key organizers in this. I did want to point out that she's going to put in the spring newsletter a draft of the report card template that's coming out. So that'll be important to look at, and any of us, including parents, can go to the ADL website and get transition standards-based learning through the PowerPoint that she's doing. They do have a few things coming up this month. Grand Friends Breakfast from 7:30 to 8:30 on the 17th, and they're going to have a Red Cross blood drive sponsored by the Team Alchemy students as part of their service learning unit. This says 12:30 to 8:30, but their website says 2 to 7, so I think
Is that
it's,
for the blood drive?
yeah,
Yeah, I just got an email on that, actually, and I think they had 2 to
2 to 7.
sometime. Might have
Okay,
been
so
2
I
to
think it's
7.
2 to 7, okay. Thomas Fleming School, congratulations to Ella Hughes. She is the 2014 National Geographic Fleming School GOB champion. What's really impressive about this is she's the 2nd girl in 14 years to become this champion. So good job, Ella. They have added a chess club to their menu of activities after school to engage the students, and there's nearly 24 students in this. And Principal Ryan wanted us to know that they've begun the search process to hire the additional 4th grade teacher. Moving on to Hiawatha, we've all talked about the before school exercise program that was designed by Alice Weston, the learning specialist, and she's got her team of Scott Evans, who's the counselor, and Random Mayer, who's the school nurse, and Joel Rasco, who's the physical education and health teacher, along with some Essex High School students. This has been a huge success, and they just recently had Lindsay Simpson come in, who is a staffer from the Vermont Agency of Education, to observe the program and hopes to replicate it throughout other schools in Vermont. They just completed their report cards for the 2nd trimester and wanted to point out that parents could go online to www.commoncore.org to check out and understand some information about these new standards. They don't have any events to report coming up. Summit Street School, they're going to be having a noted children's author come in, Stephen Swinburne, for 2 days, April 15th and 16th. They'll have a chance to meet the author and learn about books and illustrations, and the 3rd graders will actually get to have some writing sessions with him as well. He's got a great little website, steveswinburne.com, if you want to go check it out. And this weekend, April 12th at 7, the Natural Playground Committee has scheduled that evening for parents and community members to go for the live auction. There'll be a few things like hand-painted chairs designed by the students and 4 seasonal baskets from each grade level. They donated some items. Other things like little free libraries decorated by local artists. And they're going to be having 2 meetings coming up, both at 6:30, one April 15th and one April 29th. And that's it.
I would just add something that wouldn't be in Summits, but on May 2nd, there's going to be an Arbor Day celebration and a dedication of their tree for Arbor Day in the reading part of the new playground, the reading corner. So if anybody could be at that, that would be wonderful.
Before we leave that subject too, I always think Essex Junction, Rec and Parks, Brad Luck gives us a director's report, and sometimes they're part, I mean, we're in charge of them, and yet some of that info we don't give out or relate. And I think the important thing there is they finally found an assistant director, and I believe his name is Brian Roy.
Correct.
So when we do principal reports, I really think we should add the rec department. I would feel like a stepchild if,
No, I had that thought before, and not to mention it.
Up to the
Yeah,
board
do you
can
wanna
do it.
take it?
well, the
As
task
your-
team, if we do it as a task team,
Right, when we
at the
report out on our
meetings,
task
yeah.
teams, you could read
Right.
it
Yeah.
then.
we can use
Right,
that.
you can do it then, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's slightly different is that we do report out on the task teams, and some of that information may come out in the task team report.
So are you assuming that?
No, she's
Oh,
doing
oh,
EJ.
oh, okay.
So, we have some information on Title I math.
You do. You have a little bit of a blurb
A
of
little
an
bit.
update, and I'm here to provide you with enough information to answer your questions about this update. It doesn't require any action, and as with any federal legislation, I could spend an hour on this one. So I'm gonna wade through this one carefully so as not to spend too much of your time and be able to answer the questions that you need. The long and the short of it is that I'm not sure if you're familiar, but Title I is federal legislation. It's a formula grant. It's been around since the mid-sixties, improving academic achievement of disadvantaged students. It's an allocation of funds that come from the feds to the states and then to schools, all based on poverty indicators. So in other words, the state of Vermont receives their funds based on our poverty amounts, and our district receives it based on the poverty amounts. We receive the funds annually in an allocation that's a non-negotiable number. We then are asked to calculate our average poverty for the district. Any schools that are above that poverty receive this funding. Any schools that are below do not. Essex Junction has been the only recipient of Title I funds for many years. The reason that this is included as an update is that we've seen some significant changes in funding in Title I that's caused us to have to rethink our programming around it. In the short time that I've been here, since 2011, when I came on board, we had close to $350,000 in Title I funds available for Title I personnel. And so at that time, during that year, we funded a .5 math specialist in each of our at Fleming Summit and Hiawatha, as well as full-time paraprofessionals, and a full-time math specialist up at ADL. And they functioned under something called targeting and ranking, which means that they identified students in need based on assessments, and they were assigned to serve those students in a double dosing kind of model. There are two different ways that you can use Title I funds. One is targeting and ranking, as I just explained it, and the other one is called school-wide programs. The general spirit of Title I is to be able to support disadvantaged students. As I said, you receive the money based on poverty indicators, but under targeting and ranking, you serve the kids based on academic achievement. With most federal legislation, it's affected by the nuances of the changes of the Elementary Secondary Education Act. So when No Child Left Behind was reauthorized, there were some strings that were attached related to adequate yearly progress or school accountability. So as schools moved further down the AYP list, and as you know, I think beginning this August, every school in the state of Vermont will be in the will not have met adequate yearly progress based on No Child Left Behind, which can be a whole other board meeting that I can go over with you. Schools are required to set aside some of their federal funds for specific non-negotiable tasks. So when I say that we had $350,000 in 2011, we now have $227,000. However, based on No Child Left Behind, 30% of it has been shaved off the top. So not only has our allocation dropped, but our ability to spend it on personnel has dropped. We're down to about $120,000 that we can spend on personnel. So it's caused us to have to think creatively about the best way to spend these funds under the spirit of Title I and following the allowable expenses. We have, as I've said, served students in a targeting ranking. We're applying to the state. This has not been approved yet, but we're in the process of negotiating with the state to move from targeting and ranking to school-wide programs. School-wide programs allows us to spend the money more flexibly. So our proposal, after meeting with the principals, is to continue to fund our intervention services as they're constructed at ADL. That position is a Title I teacher position that's been there many years. Molly Snow serves in that position. And because of the scheduling with ADL, has worked out really well, allowing her to be able to serve kids within the schedule as well as be able to co-teach within the classroom. The change in the model will ask that Molly will play an increased role at grade 5, not necessarily serving the kids at grade 5, but increasing her presence at grade 5 to help with that transition from Fleming up to ADL in terms of capturing their assessment data and trying to understand it and communicating with the teachers. She does it informally now, but that would formalize it. And then add a position with the remaining funds. We would be combining some funds from Title II into Title I, and school-wide programs allows us to do that to fund a K-5 math coach. And the idea behind this is that if we're going to be increasing access for high-quality curriculum instruction and assessment, which is the spirit of Title I, and we don't have access to that double dosing kind of personnel, that the next best thing that we can do is make sure that we strengthen our programs in the classroom K-5. We've talked about this for probably 3 years. We've struggled with personnel serving kids and having relationships with kids at that depth across multiple buildings and the challenges that that provides. So we feel that the math coaching position is better suited to be shared across those buildings. We've successfully worked with Vermont Math Initiatives with Sandy Stanhope as a consultant for the last few years and really have seen the benefit of being able to pull teachers together to try to strengthen their program in-house. Some of the body of the work that this person would do would be to strengthen our assessment plan and to be able to help us with what we've really struggled with, and that is to find instructional materials that support the shift to Common Core. So, as I said, we're on the point where we are still waiting for state approval for this plan. The reason we have to ask for approval is because any school that has 40% of poverty or above automatically is eligible for a school-wide plan. Anyone that's 40 or below must request a waiver every year from the State Board of Ed, so we're in that position. And that's our update on Title I. If we're successful in reaching approval from the, securing approval from the State Board, it would mean a new position. It would be grant-funded position on a one-year basis only because these funds aren't sustainable. So we want to make sure that we're thoughtful about it. And we'd be coming back to you and proposing a new position, a new grant-funded one-year position, and then looking for a nomination.
Amy, I do have one question.
Sure.
It talks about, and like you just said, this position would provide leadership and professional development. Would they at all be working with the students, as in like a one-on-one to help, or is this really just for the staff?
At this point, we're going to have to be thoughtful about how well that would work. You know, it's difficult to be able to serve kids and 3 kids across the building. So primarily, we're hoping to be able to strengthen the classroom teachers.
Okay.
The way that we're using somebody like Sandy Stanhope, and in literacy, we're using Beth Moore from Columbia University, is to have them work with groups of teachers. Sometimes it's release time, sometimes it's after school, and then they go in and co-teach with the teachers. So the idea is to be able to sort of strengthen what's going on in the classroom with first instruction. That isn't to say that if things work out that we wouldn't be able to have them support students a little bit more directly, but it wouldn't be the same experience. You wouldn't sort of as a parent know that that's somebody that my child goes with regularly.
Okay.
Would it be just during the school hours?
It would be the regular teacher contract, so it would include
Okay.
after school time. Mm-hmm.
So the big, the place where we would see it, where we're gonna see, or we could potentially see an impact is that group of kids, the kids in poverty, their math achievement. So that's what how is that, basically, how will that be monitored? How will that be kept track of, so that way we see what has the impact of this really been, and it's changing from we're supporting those kids directly to essentially indirectly now, because I think, right, because that's what
Yes
we have.
and no.
We're not having the double dosing, we're having now training for the teachers.
Yes and no. Remember, we receive the funds based on our poverty amounts, but we don't serve kids based on poverty amounts. Title I requires that you serve them based on achievement results. So there's a theory behind this, that schools that have higher poverty will have struggling students. That's how we get our money. But then we're then required to identify the students based on academic achievement, and they may or may not be high poverty. The sort of the theory behind this is sort of the rising tide lifts all ships, that if you're not able to provide a double dosing, and that's a model that we've not been able to financially sustain, that the next best thing that you can do is strengthen instruction for all students.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So what do we have to keep track of?
We
Is
keep
it
track
the
of all
kids-
of our, we keep track of all of our individual student scores, including the ones that are Title I caseload students. So what we do is we provide a screening for all students. We then track them. We provide diagnostic. What we'll be asking is that the classroom teachers are doing that with the support of a coach, as opposed to a math specialist who'd be doing it in specific buildings. This year, we had to move, just to provide a little bit more funding background, because our funds were cut last year, we had to pull math services entirely out of Hiawatha and Summit, and only put them at Fleming and ADL, our two schools that were identified for AYP. This allows us to at least bring some supports back at the K-5 and spread them a little bit more. But you're right, it's not the same model where a teacher would be right with a student assessing them frequently.
Right.
That would fall on the classroom teacher.
Right, and the reason why I'm asking is, we're gonna change the way we do things. You guys are gonna, what I really wanna know is what does the board get? How do we hold that accountability? This is gonna be like my theme here, like all the time, right? Because it's like, yep, you guys are doing your detailed keeping track of, so how do we get then the view on the result of that? And when would that happen? And what would we see as, not all the details, because you guys need to handle all the details, but it's kind of like the summary of that, or is there at what point does that, kind of all get summarized and kind of come back to us? Okay, we made this change. Okay, if it goes through and we get the grant and all those things, we made this change in our staffing. Here's the results. It's working. It's not working. We need to readjust. Whatever it is. When do we think that would come back?
Ideally, what we'd like to do is position ourselves for any intervention program, or any program for that matter, to be able to say, we put it in place here, and here's the data, here's the outcome. One of the reasons that we're moving towards, and you haven't been part of the conversation, towards putting in place a district-wide data system, is because it's been challenging to be able to do that. We can track how the students have done under, say, for example, Molly's caseload. That's not information we can share without violating confidentiality. We can share with you large number sets of data.
Right.
In other words, how our free and reduced lunch students are doing, that's
Yeah.
public data, as long as our end count on that is below or above 10.
Right.
But I do think that one of the things we'd like to position ourselves better is being able to come back and say program. A good example would be if we put a new math program in place. 3 years from now, how are our students doing? But I know that you can appreciate that for some of these smaller intervention groups, we're not going to be able to get down to that level of detail in a public setting. That's work that we do here, but because of confidentiality, we can't talk about specific student results within small subgroups. Does that make sense?
Right, but I think you just said that we were applying it to all the
Yes,
kids,
we are.
so I think it's a big enough group, right? I mean,
It would be
seems like-
all of the EJ students, and that's data we can get to you. I'm explaining why you haven't necessarily seen, here's how our Title I students have done from year to year.
Oh, yeah, that, I'm okay with
Okay.
that. It's just, I'm just real specific about this specific thing, we're gonna change things, so, and it's just setting the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Is it next December? Is it, at the end of next year? Or would it be built into the school action plan? And so then we would see it in there as, what's the goal? What's the, metric? What are the actions? And then, okay, this would be in there. Do we expect to see that? And then it would be reviewed when we review the school action plans.
It is built in each of the school action plans.
Okay, great.
However, let me just say as a caveat, so that I can lower your expectations, that when we say math scores increase, there's a lot that goes into that.
Of course.
So I just want to make sure that we're honest about the fact that putting a coach in place may not necessarily make your math scores go up or down, that there's a lot that goes on, including we're in the middle of a math material search.
Right.
And the implementation of a new common.
Right,
But how do you judge whether it was successful or not? Whether it was worth continuing?
right.
Right, there could be other things that
Right,
are
so
like
we-
the
yeah.
teachers, because if it's now involved more with teacher training, then it's, there's something that comes out of that, which is like, okay, the teachers, okay, whatever it is that they do to say, yes, we now have, gained this new, knowledge or whatever. So that's why we say it was successful,
My concern with the cuts, and they're dramatic, is that we wouldn't have the false expectation with given less resource that we're supposed to make greater gains. I hope we don't lose any gains that are already in place. So I just want to, again, lower your expectations in that this isn't a panacea. This is a different model to try to sustain some level of continued
Right, but what
support.
are you gonna do to judge whether it's successful or not? I mean, whether they continue or not. Yeah, scores might go down, but maybe they went down by less, but, what's your expectations? How do we judge whether it's working and whether to, say, okay, no, this didn't work?
Well,
Yeah,
Whatever
for example,
have,
I
try
would
something
expect
else.
to see that comparatively in the action plan, if we had more resources, then we said, our goals were, like this, let's say last year, to make, a bigger number. And then the next one, we might not see that. We might say, this is all we're proposing for this year because we're changing and it's a new thing and we don't have as many resources, so this is all we can commit to. I mean, I would probably expect to see that.
But you've got
But
Title
yet,
I.
it still has to be the way that we check back in on it at the end.
And you've got Title I now, you're saying at Fleming and ADL because of the AYP, right? So that we could measure and see clearly. And it's very unfortunate that these have been cut so drastically because that's wonderful that they're there. But my concern is, when you're dealing with math, you're building on a foundation and they should really be starting at the K-5. So when you're getting to Fleming, when you're getting to ADL, you have that base versus do we need to catch them up now because we've lost someone?
Title I can be spent on literacy and math. Years ago, it was spent on literacy. It was shifted over to math. It's a struggle. I mean, I guess I'll speak with you frankly as a board. Your federal funds towards these intervention programs are declining at a rapid rate. So there will be a point at which your principals may come back to you and say, we may need to start locally funding some of these because the need has, as Judy's pointed out, not at all decreased, but our funding to support that need or to sort of fix that need has drastically decreased. And so it is not, it's not in the spirit of this is something brand new that's available to us, so we should hope to see major gains. We're in a situation where we've seen some major drops and we're gonna try something different based on what we have. And you absolutely are right that for everything we put in place, we should be positioned to be able to assess it. We're hoping to get better at that with our assessment system and our data system.
I will say, here, we've only had a budget for one day, and I'm already gonna talk about budgeting, but I know it's good to put on the table that math coaching positions and reading or literacy coaches at the elementary level are very desirable right now as a means of improving that first best instruction, and for the board to start thinking immediately as you start to look at action plans about consideration of that model for the 16 budget cycle. And this will give us some opportunity, along with some of the other coaches that we contract with, to get input as far as how it impacts that first best instruction. Westford, for example, does have local dollars that create math coaching positions and a position in literacy positions. So it's not unusual to see that more and more in surrounding schools.
Well, I can say at Hiawatha, because my children go there, we've been lucky to have Title I math specialists become the teachers. So you really see such strong math coming out of those classrooms. So that's a positive.
That's a huge positive.
So there's no action item related around this one, but again, if it's successful at the state, we will come back and it will be a proposed new position. Again, I'd caution to say it's grant funded. Because I hate to get folks here with,
Right.
any belief that it would be anything longer term than that unless we talk about it, local funding down the road. And then hopefully a nomination if we can get somebody out this late.
So to your point where it seemed counterintuitive to have a cut, to have a reduction in an area where we're trying to close the gap, it's because it's the title monies that have been cut.
Right.
That's what's driving
This is
this.
like the connection between the budget and the,
Yes.
goals, and are we putting the money where we say our goals are, which is, and the
Exactly.
two things happen a little bit separately. I guess that was my question to the board more, was, so was this discussed in January? When we were doing the budget? Did this come up, I mean, did we already plan around, because
The
I
timing
haven't
of
heard
this
anybody
Title
say,
I
like,
is
we basically
awkward.
already planned around this, we knew it was, and so we decided not, I
It'd
mean,
be nice
if
if we
it-
knew all that
No. The timing of
information.
the federal funds are
Okay.
awkward in that in October, when you're planning your budget, We typically don't know our allocations until May or June. So you're planning a budget for the following fiscal year, you don't know your allocations until then. We're fortunate in that we learned our allocations early, they've
Early.
moved that up, but just by 2 months. So when you see those funds on your grant,
After this budget.
when
yeah,
Grant and I
get-
sit, we're
Yeah.
putting down numbers that we're guessing will be your
Right.
Title I funds.
yeah,
In a
okay, that's
perfect
what I wanted to
world,
know,
we
right.
would plan that
Yeah.
way.
No, no, I
Yep,
get it, I got it.
absolutely.
That's why I was just
But
surprised.
it is an
Oh, wait,
area
this
that
is
I'll
the
come
budget
back to you this fall and
Yeah.
say, this is a trend that you're seeing, and so we
Yeah.
need to really talk about
Right,
what we're
that's
supporting
one thing.
locally.
It's basic, it's, if it's, if, and we're down to 120, basically it's gonna be zero soon,
Yeah,
so,
Could be.
so
okay.
we're already putting on,
Right, like next year,
alerting you to
yeah,
So, yeah, that's
Okay.
something we have to
deal with in the future.
be constantly mindful of.
Mhm.
Well, thank you, Amy. That's very
Was
informative.
there another, Amy,
Thanks.
before
You
Amy
can ask about an
leaves,
explanation about the leave.
there were
leave
2
request.
things.
Well, I was gonna say, is it really quick? And the only reason I'm saying is that we have a equipment issue. The battery's running dead. Okay,
Okay.
all right, so we'll take care of that then. All right.
Well, Tim had sent in a question when he had seen the
Leave request.
relief requests, and he was curious to know why that teacher had a PC contract.
yes.
This is a fascinating journey.
So we're gonna, so while Amy's here, I was going to
Oh.
take her
It will
down.
be
You
as
can
clear
explain
as
it.
mud
Yeah.
for you. I'm also your ELL coordinator. For many years, the district, the supervisory union shared one ELL teacher, and that was Deb Cheerson, and she served our K-12 ELL population. As our ELL population increased, we added staffing, and Deb, after traveling between 7 buildings, was able to sort of focus. We've gone from Deb, 1 teacher, to 5 teachers in the last 5 or 6 years, and have been able to put them in reasonable positions to be able to serve students. Deb is now full-time up at the high school. But when she moved from serving K-12 to just, say, for example, ADL in the high school to just the high school, a seniority was created. A seniority class was created, and it currently resides in PC because that's where it started. So all of our ELL teachers are PC employees, even though Deb serves up at the high school. I know it's gonna be as clear as mud for you.
No, I'm totally following, but the seniority class is not SU?
We
Because
don't
have
have a
contracts?
collective bargaining unit at the SU, so we don't employ them. This may
Okay,
change.
I got it,
ELL
but
teachers
it's-
could be
it would
wrapped into
change
this
if we went to the new
when we
thing.
go,
I got it.
exactly.
Yep.
The principal at the high school is aware of this leave request. I don't know if you want to hear about the details of it, but we're going to ask for your motion our recommendation includes very specific language in your motion.
Which is included in your report.
And I
Okay,
have
so you don't
questions
need me to
about that too,
explain that?
Well, I might,
I think if we're gonna have questions about it, if you might
we
want to
could just-
consider moving that
Okay.
agenda topic so that you can.
Well, yeah, it makes sense
while
to get it out of the
Amy is
way.
here
Yeah.
to explain it to you.
Okay. Do you have to take a motion before you hear me, or should I
So
explain?
would that be to move the entire consent agenda or just
No.
the
Just the leave?
leave of
Accept a
absence?
request for a leave of
Okay.
absence and the consent agenda.
So we'll move the discussion about the acceptance of a request for leave of absence to right now.
Deb Cheerson has applied for a Fulbright. She has not heard if she's going to be, and you see the detail about it. She's not heard yet if she's been accepted. She's asked for a leave of absence conditional upon acceptance. Our request of you, as her hiring board, as a U46 employee, is that her leave of absence, and this has been communicated with her, be accepted by you as a board conditional upon us hearing by June 1st. In other words, by June 1st, she's going to need to let us know, is she coming back or not? And we need it in one of 3 forms. Is she coming back, is she asking for a leave for the EHS first semester? Is she asking for a leave of absence for the EHS second semester, or is she asking for it for the whole year? The reason is because Fulbright has not been clear with her about exactly when she would go. It could be July to November, it could be February to March, and our response to her is that we support this as an unpaid leave of absence, but that we need to be able to function within our system and be able to be prepared to replace her in a way that fits EHS's schedule. So we endorse the idea of her taking a leave, but we're asking that by June 1st, if she is not heard, she makes a choice of one of those three things or revokes her request. That gives us enough time to be able to fill in and hire a sub for her. Does that make sense?
One question, is there any reason we couldn't give her more time if it was just for the second semester? Do you mean, are we hiring, we're only hiring for one semester possibly, right? So could you say, well, if it's for second semester, you can have until August 1st?
Our only challenge is getting out and advertising and hiring a long-term sub, which quite frankly would be difficult to hire a secondary ELL teacher in December to start in January. So we wanted to put some parameters around it that honored her request and her interest, and this is good for the organization, but allowed us to be able to still sort of function and serve kids who quite frankly need some consistency.
So I guess the only thing was, it seemed in her thing that she said that based on the options, one was something about September. So is it, are we basically, if it turns out that she won't, are we basically just ruling that out for her? That's not basically, is this what this effectively does? If there's one of the options is she won't hear until September, that's what it sounded
I
like.
think her statement was that she may not be able to tell us until July, which is why we've said to her, we're asking you to support this on the condition that we know by June 1st. We've said this to her, that this would be our message to you, that if by June 1st, she could let us know. In other words, by June 1st, she'll be faced with the decision of, I'm gonna take a risk, and I may or may not get this. Or, I haven't heard yet, and I really need to make a commitment either way. And we're asking that she make a commitment either way by June 1st. Another piece of background information is that the Fulbright scholarship is paid for her. So in other words, this shouldn't present a financial hardship for her. It's not a completely unpaid leave. So we felt pretty comfortable saying, if that's the case, then we'd like to be able to have the courtesy of a June 1st notification.
Well, the difference in the dates is that it's two separate countries
Right.
that she has these grants in, there's an alternate, so.
That's the date, right? It's something driving it that way,
Right.
right?
Right.
If it doesn't go to, if she gets the other one, then,
So I think we should.
because it's a Fulbright. I mean, we want our these are like spectacular,
Yes.
to get this, right? So like, I want to try to do as little as possible to prevent one of our teachers from getting a Fulbright, right?
Mm-hmm.
And still have enough time to support the kids, so.
I think that the recommendations here make total sense to me. I mean, and if you've already informed her of what was gonna be proposed, and it didn't sound like she had a problem with, I mean, in terms of just setting the parameters, that she was fine with that. Or-
I think we're all hopeful that she receives it. This would be a wonderful
Yes.
opportunity for her, absolutely.
Yeah, it just seems like, can we give her some more time to like meet the July? It's 1 month. Is 1 month gonna really,
That's certainly under
Kill
your
us.
purview to make the decision as her employer.
Right.
The recommendation was from the principal, just because of, it's just challenging to hire at that time. Is it impossible? No.
Right.
So the recommendation came from the principal to some extent, okay? I don't know, I'm
Yeah, I guess
fine with the 1 June.
what I don't like is, June 1st comes and she can't give you a decision. June 10th comes around and she's offered this. I mean, I don't want to prevent
Right.
So,
Yeah.
what can we do? Yeah.
And on the other hand, if the principals are recommending this, they're saying, we have to look at what's in the best interests of the students that are gonna be here next year.
Correct.
I really can't be
just-
looking at
it's a
one
hard-
individual's career versus
No.
a group of students.
No, but we're supporting this also because she's bringing, something back.
Yeah, it's not just her career.
Absolutely.
This is one of our teachers who's getting a Fulbright who comes back. These are short-term.
Right, that's why we're
things to go
supporting
for
it.
here
If it was
and
just
come
for
back.
her to go on vacation, no, we would be
Right.
supporting it. She's going to, getting something that's coming back and hopefully benefit our students.
Right.
We
It's
have
just
some
moving
precedent.
everything we
Michelle
can.
Rath received a Fulbright last year. Is that right? I don't know if we've had anybody else who's done it.
Right, this board hasn't done.
Oh, right.
Another U46.
Right,
was it?
and I think Michelle's request came in the form of semester.
Yes. So,
I don't know what the answer is though.
it's hard when
The date to pick is,
when
is,
they don't align
Yeah,
with
it's in
school
July.
school schedules.
Hmm.
Right.
I would always recommend that you would respect the principal's timeline in it. I think that Marla's point is well taken. As much as we hope for her to know in advance of June 1st, I I wouldn't want to leave anyone in a position where our own students don't have the best optimal teacher available on August, start of the school year.
Okay, this is just a question about how things work, just so I make sure I
Yeah.
understand. So let's say she has to decide, she has to say she doesn't know, so therefore she's gonna work. How does that actually work? She signed, on June 1st, what does she do, sign a contract?
At
And
that
so-
point, she would be under contract with us. It certainly is something that we can come back and revisit, but it allows us to be able to say, we haven't been able to find a replacement for you, so we need you to stay. The difficult choice that she'll make is, if she hasn't heard, is she
That's what I
willing to
mean,
take
is
the
that-
risk and sort of take, and she could still come back and say, I'll take a semester off. So that's why we wanted to give her those options, that if she could work with us on semester 1, semester 2, or full year, she could take fall semester off, find out she didn't get it, and she comes back in the spring. So we wanted to give her as much flexibility as we
Okay.
could, but still try to find a way to be able to fill her position in a reasonable time. Judy's right, it's not ideal. I wish Fulbright could come out of the gate earlier than this. It's uncomfortable for us as school districts to function in this kind of timeline.
How did the other one work out, as far as timing wise?
I believe her request came in advance around the semesters.
Yeah.
If we need-
So
they
she
didn't
knew.
hire anybody yet, then they can hire back.
But I mean, as far as like, what do you mean when, around the semesters? I guess I don't,
She knew she had the full year.
But it's on her.
She was going
but I mean,
through
like
full year.
when? Like when
She-
in the year, in
We
the,
don't know.
in this process? Was it like before the end of the previous school year?
Yes, it was.
Or, okay. I guess that's all I meant, was
Yeah.
just if the timing is,
I'm not sure she knew or not. I know that she requested her leave
I
though.
think she was prepared to take it regardless.
Yeah.
okay.
That was my sense. I don't
Okay,
want
so
to speak
that-
for her, but.
She
Right.
requested
Mhm.
the leave as of June 1st and took the risk. And it worked great for her.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of different ways that she can still maneuver within this.
Yeah.
You don't have to take action on this. You can wait until you get to the consent agenda, but I just appreciated Amy staying
Yeah.
to
It was a
explain the
complex one.
minutia.
Okay.
It was a hard one for us to navigate.
It was hard.
And she doesn't feel like she's your employee, so I wanted to explain why you're acting on an EHS employee.
Well, are there any other questions for Amy? I mean, if you'd like to kind of
I got it.
You got it? Good.
go on, I mean, we can move the decision back into to the consent agenda.
Yeah, right.
Thank
You know,
you. I
that's fine.
appreciate your
That's
time
cool.
on that. I'm sure you 4-6 board appreciates your time on this.
All right, Amy, what's your role again, just because I don't know.
I'm the
Sorry.
Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment.
Okay, great,
Yes.
thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Thanks.
Thank
Amy
you.
Cole, Tim Kemmer,
Hi, Tim.
new board member, Tim, Amy Cole, sorry. And Ben Dickey. Ben Dickey
That's
is
right.
the executive assistant, Tim Kemmer, Ben
Ben,
Dickey.
Ben,
Yeah.
thanks for your this morning.
I'll come back and fill you all in on SBAC when you have more time.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's the
great.
next.
All right, thanks, Amy.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Amy.
Okay, and we're gonna continue on with CCSU board update. And there was a couple items that were discussed at the CCSU board, one of which was the policies that were reviewed at first reading. And I want to find my notes here. I handed out B20, which we spent, there was some significant time at the board meeting discussing B20. There were a few people, there was some information that was brought up as suggestions as far as, you know, did you look at this, did you look at that, that would have been helpful perhaps when the original discussion had been held at the policy meetings. And one of the things that we came out with was to reduce, alter some of the language around informal or non-official or official staff communications with the board. And you can see in your org notes, what had been proposed by the policy committee was, you know, that all official communications shall be submitted through the superintendent and/or the board chair. And that was where our discussion went to for quite a long period of time, was whether or not any communication should bypass, any official communication should bypass the superintendent.
And it can't because of grievance. There's a grievance process and we act as a jury. So, under official communication, we can't bypass the superintendents. There's dates and timing that things have to occur. So that was agreed upon, and under unofficial communication, a few of the members had, I thought it was a good suggestion where they wanted to add that the board members shall adhere to and be guided by the principals. That was a good addition, I thought. And I totally agreed with the the official communication. And we asked our 3 board chairs that were there at CCSU that they didn't appear to be comfortable to want to be given documents that might relate to a grievance.
Yeah.
I think that there was also a lot of conversation about how much people appreciated the clarity that came through this revised policy about what is non-official communication and official communication.
Yeah.
I think that it's great that the committee spent the time they did on really clarifying that, and that the boards really have talked at length
Fantastic.
about really having clarity now on directions. I thought I took that away from the last SU board meeting, a deep appreciation for spending the quality of time of creating the clarity and calibration of what people understand this policy to mean now.
Yeah, it's relevant for me because I'm gonna, I think, this is like how it applies, just because I'm thinking about that is, because I'm new, to this board, I'm gonna wanna go, meet the principals and like take a little tour, right? That's just a non-official, like, get to see the school, see what's going on there, figure, go and, get to know it a little bit, maybe meet some people, some teachers, whoever, depending on whenever I can schedule it. But yeah, that's kind of my information, so I can get up to speed on what's going on. That's like non-official, and like when it says official visits by board members, that means it's like about some like official topic.
Right.
Like there's something going on that we all need to go, or a group of us, a subgroup of us needs to go and like do something about.
Right.
Or find out about, very specifically, I think, right? That's what the intent is there.
Jen, yes.
This,
Right.
the policy, years and years ago on the PC, we did have issues with board members. They were going into schools and telling principals how they wanted things to be done, or staff. And it became, this was back in the late, mid-90s, late
Right.
90s. And so the policy was pretty much a protection against board members doing that to staff. So the way it was looked at, because there was a different policy than the one that the policy committee worked on this time, so it's a good protection for the staff.
So I don't know if this got talked, if I could just ask about this, if this got talked about, right, is the reverse. So it put a filter on, or inadvertently, or a perceived filter, that staff can't get us information because it has to go, through, how, did you talk about that? Like, that, kind of just to put it plainly, it's like, oh, the superintendent just feels, oh, they get this thing, well, this isn't favorable information. Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna deem this not worthy of telling the board. It's kind of an extreme, I don't really believe that, but just even in a more subtle way, right? When something is in a gray area and it could be interpreted, did you guys talk about that at all?
That conversation was more in the policy subcommittee, and that's why we wanted it in there. So there was 2 channels of communication, and that was the one piece that we actually wanted to keep in there, and it was cut. So when the school climate committee came to us with this recommendation of, effective and ensuring ways of open communication, we thought to have 2 channels.
Okay.
So the conversation was in the policy subcommittee, and that's what the policy committee wanted.
But see,
Originally.
what caused the
Okay, I
climate
see it
study,
there. Yeah, yeah.
that communication to me is unofficial.
Right.
So I would take what the teachers' union did. They did their own little study, they did their own little survey. To me, that's unofficial communication. So I was glad to have the non-official versus official. To me, the official is anything that could potentially become a grievance issue. For instance, if we decide to do certain budget cuts, which I saw many years ago, like when we cut the RN or the nurses program, it wouldn't have been appropriate for them to be giving me information because it was going to become a grievance. You know what I mean?
Yes.
As
It's
a board
specific
member,
thing.
so,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So that's an example right there. You gotta be really careful,
Yeah.
but yet at open houses, because of our other board policy that we had, I found it very awkward to be at an open house and having a staff member coming up and talking to me about certain things going on in the school. But so this lays it out now where I think I can feel comfortable that this is our policy, and if they want to tell me, oh gee, math is going great, or I'm having this, or not the complaints, like if they have a complaint about a superintendent or a complaint about a principal, that's not appropriate.
But that sounds not equal, right? If negative complaints aren't appropriate, then positive comments shouldn't be either. Right? I mean, it's kind of a double standard, right? Like if you tell me everything's fine, oh, that's okay. But I mean, I'm just to kind of get into it a little bit, right? Like it seems like a little, because I totally agree with you. That is probably exactly what I would kind of think. But like, it seems that it's more about like specific things and non-specific things. How do things feel in the school is non-specific. That's a general, thing, which could be positive or negative, right? And it's not a specific complaint about one specific thing. Exactly. And so that to me is the separation. But I think in the past it hasn't been clear that
Right.
because there's this like wall, and so that I think was preventing even non-specific stuff.
Right. I guess I look at it, any communication that would go directly to the board that bypassed the chain, essentially going, if it comes from the staff that bypasses the principal or superintendent, cannot be considered official communication, would be the other way to look at it.
Oh, okay.
That it would be
But I
considered
have that-
non-official.
But I have that actually prescripted by my company, right? I mean, how do you resolve that thing? We have actually a specific policy that actually is very official that does that exact thing.
Well, I guess that's what I'm
It says,
saying.
if I have a problem with my boss, I go over his head to his boss because I can't go through him. He's the problem.
Right.
I
that's
have to
what
have a policy. There has to be something that says,
Right.
this is the
There
way
is.
that you do it. When that is the exact problem. All other problems though, okay, they have to go,
There
through
is a
right?
complaint policy.
So there is,
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
As long as that's covered.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I just look at, I guess I see
Yeah.
that differently than just, the conversation that, whether it's a positive or a negative, it's not considered an official communication.
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's how I take it from this.
Yeah, as
I
long
would
as it
interpret
pretty
this
clearly
policy.
identifies what non-official is, then, and it seems to, and all the underlined stuff is new.
Yeah, do you have the color one? I think it's,
I do have a question, because the one that we received in our org notes that was from the first reading is
Right.
not what was given to me tonight. So when did you guys put this part in?
So this was what was recommended at the SU board meeting. Then, after that meeting, we had the minutes, but we didn't insert the information, or we tried to, and at any rate, Paul created the last revision. What is it that you're seeing that's different?
This whole thing. The board members shall adhere and be guided by the principles of the Vermont School Board Association.
It's in my order.
Yeah, it's in mine, it's on page 40.
Which one is she saying?
Yeah, Jen, when I printed out for you, I didn't have it at that time, and I added it into the ones online.
Okay,
So
okay,
just-
then that's,
Oh,
Oh,
that makes sense. Okay.
it's a timing issue.
That's the one that.
Today's technology, huh?
got updated.
Hey, these are the art notes I got printed.
I'm fun with email.
I know,
Oh, wait, and that's just saying.
constant revision
Right.
mode.
Right,
Okay, so board agreed to that, okay.
yes. And then as,
Well, in first reading.
yeah, it's just
So
that first
the reason
reading.
why we have it on the agenda tonight, and it was a question that Tim asked, is because this is the time where the local board discusses with the SU board, decided at first reading, in case there's any changes for second reading, and your question was more specific, and either David or Michael or Marla can explain the overarching, or Jen, 'cause she was on the committee, the overarching school health. Tim's question was, why are procedures coming forward? We always thought procedures were something that the administration wrote, and this transition that you were making to remove certain policies, do you know, like the knits and head lice policy, where that was a policy on its own, and now with this overarching health policy, they just include it as a procedure.
Moved it into,
We're trying to consolidate, and also when things are in law, do we need to have it? Because we're really trying to make it easier for people to search, and when you go online to look for these policies, it's like A to Z, and they've got numbers and all these letters, and so we're trying to simplify and only put things in there that are really necessary to be there, and if it's not necessary for them to be in policy, we put them in
In the procedures, right?
procedures. So
Right.
they're,
Yeah, right. Yeah, that sounds great, right? But we don't approve the procedures, right?
No, you approve the policy.
Yeah.
We just wanted to
Good.
make sure that
It was
when,
just showing where it went.
right, so, yeah, so now
Yeah.
it's
That's
no
all- that's all
longer
I
a
was
po-
doing.
because
a
all of
policy,
those
it's moving into a
policies
procedure.
were being removed, and
Got it.
I didn't want you to feel we were just removing policies without them, the
Yeah,
procedures.
Right.
to show where they went,
Yes.
because that was the change that was happening. Yeah,
Yeah.
I got it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that was.
Yep, no
It's
problem.
like when you come in and the plane is flying and you're trying to see, how did that happen?
Yeah, where did this come
Missed
from?
takeoff
Yeah.
on that.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So where is this? This is like proposed, like gonna go to reading 2 or something?
Yes.
Right.
And so the only thing I would say about that red text is just a total technicality. It should be separated. We should adhere to the CCSU school board members' ethics policy B5, because that's a policy. But we should be guided by the principles of the school board code of conduct, because that's not a policy. So I think it's the intent of what's being trying to say there, but I think the adhere to and guided by needs to be separated, because it's, you know, we shouldn't say we have to adhere to one that is like the voluntary code of conduct. Maybe.
no, it makes sense.
Possibly.
Adhere to and be guided.
It's just the second part of the sentence, I think, is what the adhere to one is, and the guided by is the code of conduct.
Adhere to the policy and be guided by the principles.
Okay.
Just,
No,
I
that
think
makes
that's
sense.
the intent
That
of it.
makes
I
sense.
I think we'll get an argument from the
Brian?
majority of the CCSU board. They were very clear that they wanted this in here and that board members would follow this, you know, so I think that's why the adherent to be
Okay,
guided.
it could be that's the
But
intent, yeah.
when we go to our CCSU meeting, we'll be looking at that, Tim, so make that note and bring it up.
Okay, yeah, I'll bring it up. Yeah,
That'd be great,
yeah. Oh, yeah, right, I can bring it to the
yeah.
Yes, you can.
Right.
Well, let's talk about that. You can bring it on behalf of the board if that's what this board agrees.
Well, right, that was always the thing.
Yeah.
With 3 of us
Is it
there,
the
then
will
we
of the
can sort
board?
of decide if that's, you know.
Right,
Yes.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just, I don't care.
What else under SU board meeting?
Well, then there was the AWP. which, is that this part that you wanted to just kind of point
That's
to?
that legislative piece.
Right,
Martha Heath provided an update
I've already passed those out.
of the different bills and where they were at during the legislative session in March. And recently, we received this document that Michael disseminated that was in the St. Albans Messenger. The time is now, and former Secretaries of Education, or at that time Commissioners, David Walk, Ray McNulty, Richard Cate, and Armando Villaseca all took a position on H883, which is the bill that's under conversation now about forming pre-K-12 school districts and eliminating supervisory unions. That bill is in Ways and Means now. Marla attended the VSBA regional, you were the
couldn't go
only
to that one.
PC member there.
Okay.
2 Westford board members and Jack.
From the Union High School. We went to the meeting that they held at Mount Mansfield, the Vermont School Board Association. And it was a great meeting to attend because Steve Dale with Vermont School Board Association, he actually briefly went over the situation analysis of public education in Vermont that was presented when Mike and I went down to the Vermont Regional School Board Conference the end of October. They went through all the changes in the acts and the laws and what's necessitating a change in the state of Vermont. So it may not happen this year, but it's very important that we start following this. And it might be something that we may want to start attending our regional board meetings also, but that's for another conversation.
So I know,
It's my future agenda.
There's regional
Yes.
board meetings, yeah.
Yeah, those I know about, okay, now.
Okay.
Yeah, VSBA,
Yep.
regional meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to go to those.
Yeah. and the conferences. So Superintendent Andrews and I have been talking, I know he's talking with his K-8 board right now, and asked if this board would also be having the conversation about our thoughts and having community dialogue to see what interests there may be. If this bill continues to get legs and momentum about our work as far as forming a pre-K-12 school district. And if you're interested in pursuing it.
Merger.
No, they're not calling it merger.
It's
No, no.
expanding, it's an expansion of our
they're
school
not,
district.
but in Essex, that's what it is. It's merger and consolidation.
So
One-
it's sort
one
of
board.
a question about where do you
We would
think?
meet, it's like got a goal for like size, right?
Yeah.
Students.
120,
And it-
1250.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, we're already
So-
we got 1250 at the high school, like we easy meet it, join Essex in and we have one, that would meet the kinda,
Right, so
you
if
know,
there's a
ballpark.
place where it could work easily
Right.
and not disrupt students.
Right.
The thing that is going to get tricky, I think, is in the law, there's so many questions about the law, and they didn't come up with concrete ways to do things. They've left a lot of things open, like where does Essex Junction Rec and Parks fall? Prudential Committee can set their own tax rate. There's 2 in the state that can. We're one of them. How's that gonna work if we're one big district? Are we going to have to be going through our select boards, or are we gonna be our own taxing entity? So there's lots of things, so
Right.
there's a benefit to working this out ahead of time and coming to agreements with Westford and the town of Essex and the Union School Board, but the legislatures, and Martha's one, talking to Tim Sherman, Linda Wapesense, and they do not think I think Tim thinks it could happen. Linda doesn't think it could by the end of the session, but they don't think that this bill's gonna go through. There's not enough time, but obviously something may come out next year.
Or
So-
very soon, yep.
And if not driven through legislation, is there interest in having the conversation with your sister district in terms of, is there some low-hanging fruit where we could begin to see some efficiencies, and having the conversation? If you think it's dead in the water and the community is completely opposed or not interested in having this conversation, how will we know that? I mean, we've had 2 studies now done around unification with 2 committees that have unanimously come out and supported it, and 2 failed reports or results.
Results, yeah.
So the question is the time here again to have the conversation again? I think it's been 8 years since it was last studied. And this bill is proposing that by 2020 we'd have it, figured out, and gives us the ability to figure it out. But regardless of the fate of that bill, I think there's a question on the table about interest and readiness. And if so, then what? Is that like a planning day piece where you're gonna think about talking with Essex Town Board? All of the K-8 students in Essex go to the high school. So half of us are unionized at the 9-12 level.
Oh, yeah, we're splitting that already.
Yeah. And I'm uncertain, like with Heart and Soul and all the work that the community has done with some of that, is there a new feeling that maybe we could begin the conversation again? Or is that definitely not even worth the time or energy to go there? I know people point to Essex all the time as a place where it could happen, in that it's not like some of these schools have, or supervisory unions who have like 45 board members that live in very different kinds of communities across a huge geographical area, and it's really difficult for kids with transportation and all those real barriers. But when they look at this community, they wonder about, are there some benefits, and can it be something that can be worked out? And one of the examples, Marla went right down the right path, like what are the questions and how can they be resolved, and how have other study groups thought about moving forward? Is it worth the time and energy for the greater good of Essex children to have that conversation through the benefit of kids?
There's a couple of things that come out right away. It's like there's a philosophical difference right now. Still, it's one of the backgrounds of between even why it's still the way it is today, right? I mean, there's some things that are Essex Town has its own school district. It wants to have its own school district. There's some there's votes that have happened in the past. They've got their own thing. They have their own little control, right? So that there's desire there. And on our side, we have our side about doing everything at the SU, at the SU level, doing K-12, there, so that has been all built in over time. Everyone's used to functioning that way, and so without a big motivator, I don't think which is either big money savings, which I think we've already shown that that's not what you're going to see, or you got a law that says you have to do it. You have to. Now, okay, without that, I don't think there's much value, right? Let's just stay connected to our, our counterparts, but
Well, I think it's
wouldn't
hard
really-
for this board because you have it. It's hard to
Yeah.
change, moving in a direction of something you already have. You already have a pre-K-12.
Right, we have pre-K-12 already, yeah.
But you have 2 boards, but it just so happens we have a SU who have extremely extreme cooperation between board members, so it's not like there's competing
Right.
interests. So I can see how there's less motivation on behalf of this board, where I would think the Essex Town
Good.
may have some motivation in that the seamlessness of a K-12 experience.
What I think about it is, that's really interesting is, I think there's some driving forces behind it. I think there's a lot of statements out there about what's wrong with how we structured education, and that's what this bill is trying to address, because it's going down one of those paths. Well, part of the problem is over 200 school boards, right? Part of the problem is all these small districts. So we'll fix that by having, having the law for consolidation, right? But back when I was on U46, we were talking about consolidation, right? And so I did a little research and looked it up, and just did some quick looking. Okay, well, so forget about this. What's the most consolidated it could be, right? One school board for the whole state. Oh, that's good. Albuquerque, New Mexico, 650,000 residents, just like Vermont. One school district. They have one board. Wow, that must be really consolidated. They must say, what's their budget? $2 billion, same as the state of Vermont. It's like, it's the most consolidated it could be, but I haven't seen anybody show any data that says the more consolidated you are, the more money you save. Everything depends, because it depends on what you do. So there's no automatic, like, if you do this, you're gonna save 20%.
No, but not save money, but are there more opportunities available to more people?
Right.
But again, no one has,
that's another big
but
thing.
no, but yeah, that's like depending on what you do. If you don't close a school and you make it a magnet school, then that's a way of having more opportunity. If you send kids in a small school that don't have very much today to a bigger school, they have more opportunities. So it just depends on which way you want to do it. There's no automatic win.
I think the hard thing is if this bill doesn't go through this year, I'm not sure there's a motivation
Right.
to talk with Town of Essex, but there's one question I would like to get answered. Before we talk to the Town of Essex, if we were going to consider it, and as a supervisory union, we're set up to have 3 members of Westford in our supervisory union, 3 from the high school, 3 from here. If we decide to become one board with the high school, Town of Essex, ourselves, where does that leave Westford? Can we say, if they don't want to do it because they're the vote in their town, they want still local control, they want a school choice? I mean, Martha and their board members at CCSU has made that clear. They don't want to give up the choice. There's things that they have. So I don't want to be beaten, what is it called, the dead horse, unless legally I'm told that if we decide to do something with the high school, Town of Essex, then we can say goodbye, Westford. And that's my honest opinion, because I don't think we're going to resolve Westford's problems to become, and I don't really want to be one member town, from someone living in the town, one from here and one from the high school board, with 3 members of Westford on the board. You know what I mean? So I would rather get a legal opinion before we go any further, because otherwise we're wasting our time. That's just.
Okay. Well,
That's
we're actually going to
helpful.
continue having discussions. I mean, this is not
Yeah, right.
this is not something that we're not going to continue to talk about.
Right, just a dipstick in the commissioner's perspectives from the past.
Right. Maybe just not so much more tonight.
Yeah.
The other piece from the CCSU board is the AWP, and I know the executive committee, which is myself, the Westford chair, and the U46 chair, are getting together next week to again discuss the superintendent evaluation goals. We're still discussing it, and I believe believe the plan is to have a decision.
You gotta bring something to the
Leaders at
CCSU
work.
board for the end of May. I think it's May 24th.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got to get it hammered out.
So what would be great for me is like the whole, to just get caught up on
Yep.
what's the whole schedule supposed to be?
We'll
You're right,
show
what's the
you
cycle?
when you come in for your orientation. We have the Leaders at Work
It's in there.
model and timeline all online.
Okay,
So we're gonna
so I
give
can
you
just go through that.
access when you get your pass.
Okay,
Right.
great, I'll just go through that.
Because, yeah, the org notes from the last SU meeting has a lot of that stuff in it also. Just, I mean, as far as one particular location
Mm-hmm.
of that of the plan.
Yep.
Okay.
There's one thing you missed from that night.
Which one did I miss?
You missed that we had a contract signed with our new superintendent, and we haven't met as a PC since that.
That's true.
And our contract, it was talked about on camera in open session. Judy has signed a 2-year contract. She also was great, and she took a piece in her contract, and she has dropped 10 personal days down to 5 days to set an example, because other staff do not have that. And I'm trying to think if there was anything else, but we got you for 2 years.
You do.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
reminding me.
Thank you all. It's a pleasure to serve. Truly is.
Task teams. Let's start with communications, because they're the most recent to have met, I think.
Yeah, so we went over a few things, we talked about the new board orientation. And Judy showed us a nice slideshow that she had put together, and it had things like administrative services, broke down the roles, spelled out what the CCSU is, specified what the board does, and we just gave some feedback on that, and then they'll be showing that, which I thought was a great new tool.
Tim.
Yes, you will see that.
Recipient of that work.
I try to act like I don't know anything, to give a honest,
There's a joke in it.
new.
Yes, there is a joke in it, there's a joke.
Oh, now you're challenging me.
And we
If I don't
also-
get the joke.
You'll get the joke.
You
You'll get the joke. So, what else? The CCSU email accounts. Kind of to inquire, and I don't have to do it now, but how it's working for everybody, if anyone's having any issues with it. We know that people have multiple email accounts. And if anyone is having a problem, to contact Ben. We thought this might be a topic for planning day. We also talked about the possibility of investing in Chromebooks for the boards, so we're all on one unified piece of technology. Some wanted it, some didn't. So it's just a topic that we could discuss then.
Okay.
So what we finally did, Tim, this year, our big goal that we attained was that every every board member within Chittenden Central has a SU board account. And we have a board site now that's been developed that you go to using your account for all your information, so we're no longer sending information via your email. So
Right.
now your email's protected from, you just access it. Ben sends out the information, here's the link, that you can go to the site.
There's a link to it's like
Agendas
a
or.
cloud thing, basically.
To documents, yeah. And
Okay, yeah, it's great.
I'll admit,
You don't have
I,
to send it out as a product email.
But it's a
Right.
behavioral change that we're working
Yes.
on as far as people accessing that account.
Yeah.
And, you know, just that change in how they access and learn how to maneuver in it.
Right.
So the communications committee is trying really hard to figure out where is it that's still causing people some problems, because Ben's been trying to schedule some meetings and there's crickets out there with responses. So, you know, somehow we feel like since we've done this, there's a little bit of a miss with board members and communications. So we're trying to figure out what the problem is so that we can fix it.
I can honestly tell you, I don't like technology. I don't like email. I prefer face-to-face conversations over the phone. I can tell what people are thinking better, that's just me. I do not look at email every day, but I have to look at my email Monday through Friday at work. And also, so that's one place that if somebody sends me a note and says, you've got an email, go look your CCSU stuff up tonight, I can do it. But I have to be reminded until I get in the habit, which I'm getting in the habit. But the thing I found, Jennifer, and I don't know why, is the board notes from this, the org notes, I was able to print on my own printer, okay. But when I try to do budget, anything that Grant's giving that's on budget, my printer is rejecting it, and it cuts itself out, and I have to keep going back and finding the page that it's dropped at and go back again and again to get it to print. And I don't know if it's my own personal
Right.
printer or if it's just so much information that it's just shutting it down, so.
Yeah, if you can get Vince on the phone,
Or
when that's
Ben.
happening, or Ben, you know,
Yeah.
I guess start with Ben, and then if
Yeah.
Ben's not available, Vince, I mean, that, both good at troubleshooting.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's the big message.
Right.
You know, if you're
Whatever
struggling.
issue you're having, tell him
Right.
so we can figure it out. We
Yeah.
did talk about Vince possibly coming to planning day as well to walk through the website. And Marla, there was other people that said they had the same thing. They don't check the email, so they'd like Ben to send an email to their other email saying, check the other email. So we were just trying to see if it created more work for him or not, but.
And I think some people aren't familiar with how Google Sites work, and you know, like the other day, somebody struggled with just to click on the download button, didn't know how to download it, you know, I
You
mean,
can download the files, right?
yeah.
Yes,
The PDF or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
great.
yeah, you can view them online,
can I-
or you can download them.
And then, so would we
See, I've
upload
been able to do that.
also?
Mhm.
What's that?
Like if I do something, can I upload it there and then, to like, you know, let's say I make a document, can I upload it?
I'd have to look if you have the access, but I think as of right now, if you want to upload something, just send it to me and I can do it.
Okay.
I don't know if all the members have access to upload, but you can download or view it online. I just know that there was an issue in communications where people didn't know where they could download it compared to look at it online.
Yep.
They didn't realize that there were two separate things. So
Yeah.
that was something we discussed. But
So there's just some training needs, and I think it's helpful if we, during planning day,
Yeah, it's
have some time with it,
it's a good thing to remember
yeah.
for that. Okay, policy, I don't know when the last time policy was met. You did? Okay.
Although, next Wednesday's
It's
canceled.
canceled because of negotiations.
Yeah, I just had an email that it was canceled.
Right.
Check your email.
Same like negotiations?
So we're working on student policies and J policies, and obviously we talked about simplifying the website for searching the policies as well.
Okay. And negotiations, again, right now, all the work has been in the small group committee. That's been taking care of a lot of the boilerplate language. I think, is that done? Or you guys are really close?
We have one more session
Yeah.
before, we're meeting 3:30 to 5:30, so that when the board meets after that, you'll see exactly the end product of where we find ourselves.
And then
Wait,
the next,
Sorry, what time is the next meeting?
The small
5:30?
group is 3:30 to 5:30, and then 5:30 to 8:30.
and that's the one you couldn't make, and so I was gonna go, right? Because that's on the 16th.
16. I can make it at 5:30, I'll just have to leave early. So
Okay.
I'll come at 5:30 until probably 6:30, or maybe probably 6.
Okay.
So I can be there for an hour, so I just can't.
And leaders at work.
We are, well, our meeting this, next week has been canceled. Ben sent an email, I checked it, and I think the only one that has not responded was Jack the last time. There's one date I think it's the 29th that we're all available, and we're waiting to hear from Jack. And at that meeting, we have to meet because the goals that we talked about at CCSU, that the executive committee, the chairs are meeting on, they get brought to the leaders at work and we review them before they go to the CCSU meeting. So that's pretty much where that is, and we're at the point where in the superintendent's evaluation, I believe we're still just working on the timeline of making this timeline work, because now that we've got this evaluation timeline, this is our first year of really working it. So we're fine tuning it and finding out what's working and what's not working.
Right.
So.
There'll be a lot of minor adjustments as we're moving forward and learning.
Yeah. It's the time.
I know this was like this before, and it's leaders at work, superintendent evaluation, but also CCSU superintendent evaluation?
The leaders at work created a new model and timeline for the superintendent's evaluation.
Yep.
The executive committee is a committee that evaluates the superintendent, but the leaders at work are ensuring that there's pivotal times along the way that a formative assessment occurs and that they're stayed informed
Okay, so
at the SU level of that progress.
So
Did
the
I say that well?
CCSU board doesn't take part in it then?
Well, see, the problem is they had leaders at work for a few months not working, and it gets off target. Leaders at work is a whip. That's all we are, is a whip. Everything comes compiled in, look at it, date, okay, this is what we gotta do, and it's go to our boards and say we're gonna get back on timeline, or because I believe Mike, when he was superintendent, I was shocked when I got on the board 3 years ago. He told me how many years and he hadn't been evaluated, which to me sends a poor signal because we're the leaders. We have to set the tone. If we expect our superintendent to be evaluating their staff, then.
And I guess maybe it's just a semantics thing, but it does seem like, I mean, that seems like clearly it's the role of the SU board. That has got to be one of its main roles. So that, and maybe it's just that the leaders at work thing is kind of a vague name. Instead, it should be a subcommittee of the SU board. And maybe it is. Maybe it effectively is a subcommittee of the SU board. It's just.
It's just like.
Task teams are
Well, no,
subcommittees.
because members on task teams are not on the SU board. These task teams are joint teams of members of of all three boards. The SU board is not that. It's its own board, with 3 members from, you know what I mean? It's kind of a technicality, but.
Leaders at work, are all members of leaders at work on the SU board?
They don't have to be.
See, they don't have to be. So
Right,
see,
well,
it's a
proposing they should- they
confusing
should.
thing then, because now it's like separating it, because now that makes it seem like, well, leaders at work, oh, well, then you have to come back to because we have people, you have to report out to us, just like we're doing right now. Now we're involved in that. It's like, but instead, it should be through the reps to the CCSU board.
Well, but then you'd have to change your policy and how you do. CCSU board sets the evaluation for the superintendent. It sets the policies.
Right.
The policies are decided.
No, that's what I
And
mean. So that's why it seems
so
weird.
if you don't want leaders at work, then you've got to disband the policy committee.
No, there's no policy that says there has to be leaders at work. That's just an agreement.
I think what Marla is saying is that we've centralized the work through these task teams throughout the organization, that the SU board, some of those responsibilities are shared through these task teams.
Okay, right. That just maybe is more the way that.
It's a functionality of getting the work done on a shared level where there's input
Right.
From the
But then the SU board, the
grassroots.
chair of the SU board, if that task team doesn't meet, then it's not getting its job done, right?
Right.
And so then the chair of the SU board has to say, no, this can't happen. Okay, we have to take it back or whatever.
Right.
Whatever we have to do to
Right.
make it happen, right?
You're
Because if
correct.
they delegated it to say, oh, this task team's gonna take care of it now,
Absolutely.
then
Right.
they can't let that, slide then, if that's what,
That's why we were put back into operation.
Right,
Yes.
so it
Right.
was reinforced and,
Exactly. So they went
yeah.
on hiatus, then the SU board said, you're out of hiatus,
Right.
and it's functional again. So, what we're hoping through the annual work plan now is to go back and say, well, what specifically are your outcomes for these different task teams? For example, in communications, we were to develop a board orientation training this year and focus on board member trainings. So one of the things we did is created the site, and you'll soon experience board orientation training.
Yeah.
So it was task completed, and now we'll evaluate based on what we've done and continuously improve. So
Yeah.
but that charge then goes back to the SU, and it gets worked through an annual work plan process.
Yep.
So policy, same way. What are the policies? It was wellness this year, and they went through the J students and
Yeah, right,
designed
and
it.
that one's a little more clear, because there's a policy task team, but then they only go back really to the SU board.
And
That's
I
where
think-
all the action happens.
With the leaders at
Okay.
work, in this particular instance, I think because we're trying to get ourselves to the annual work plan model, superintendent evaluation, there is a little bit more of a tightly coupled thing going on with leaders at work and the executive committee.
Okay.
That's occurring right now simply because of manpower and certain efficiencies we get from using that committee to help vet a lot of ideas, I guess.
Well, they were charged with creating a model. There
Right.
wasn't a superintendent's model in place.
Right.
So that was the purpose for the
Yeah, no, I get-
genesis of the
yeah.
team.
And so it's still
Yeah.
it's still together because it hasn't been finished yet.
So
I
they've
guess.
created the model
That's okay.
that the SU board will use.
Right,
So it's interrelated. It's
right.
like everything we do.
That's the last one.
Yep.
All right.
Annual meeting vote.
So
We had an annual
the
meeting.
results from the annual meeting and the voting on Tuesday. Did you guys get the some of the numbers here from the general budget?
Mandate
Had
and slide.
yeah. Actually, I checked with, I was just curious, I asked for some numbers from Grant, and as far as voter turnout, we had a higher number of people than last year.
We had higher.
Yeah, we had more people. It was up in the upper 500s last year, and this year it was in the,
700.
mid 700, low to mid 700.
And I think it's average about, that's about 10% of
Yeah.
eligible voters.
Yeah,
That's
so
what it's averaged over the
Yeah.
last 10
Yeah.
years. Last year was particularly poor.
Right.
So we're improving on the bottom, we're coming off the bottom.
And we managed to get Tim 60 votes of write-in.
Oh, I got 60.
You got 60.
Oh,
As a write-in, you're the highest write-in.
That's
candidate.
way better than I did as a
Yeah.
write-in when I
Yeah.
first
so
got
that
out.
is
Minimum
more
30, yeah.
signatures than you guys got on your signature sheet, I will point out.
And
But Marla.
Marla
was
got,
the big winner.
Oh, jeez, that was a hard campaign. like
It was.
Yvette said. But if you'll notice, Erin Knox
she got
beat me
more.
out by 8
I know.
votes. She got 501, I only got 493.
Oh, okay.
So I've made some
Still,
enemies.
500
people
people
out there.
coming out to vote for
Well-
board.
Last year, Dave got one more than me.
I know.
So what was this, one more?
Yeah, it was
I
one
got
more.
more, right. Actually, I do remember that song.
I figured it was just Dave didn't go over to
I'm
my
just kidding, I don't-
section and mark that one. But everything passed fairly easily. Even our security article has passed, and that's going to require some. There's some work to be done with that yet.
Procedures.
Yeah,
We'll
procedures,
talk about that.
policies, the actual equipment installation, purchase and installation. So
And training.
training.
Yeah.
Decisions of-
It's not a July 1st kind of thing that boom done. You know,
Yeah,
it's,
right,
it's,
there's a lot to
there's,
talk about
there's,
still about
There's
what
a
are we
lot
gonna
to
do
Right.
next.
yes, and,
So that should be on our agenda for meetings moving forward every month. Get
yeah, it's not a
updates,
bad
you
idea,
know,
just to kinda,
so we can
uh,
plan around it.
keep that in,
Oh, just a technicality on that. How, in terms of how it was written, does it get added to the whole number now?
For the tax rate?
Yeah, the
Yes.
35,000 gets added to
Yeah.
That's
the
correct.
other budget number now.
That's
And
correct.
now we calculate the rate off of that.
that is
Okay,
correct.
that's what I thought, just to make sure.
Right. and
It's like
yeah,
adding a line item, basically, it's like adding a line item to the
Yeah.
budget
Right.
and recalculating the total.
Yeah, at the annual meeting, I didn't say it, I said that, but the other way is that it wasn't in the numbers that you see,
Right,
right?
right.
But there actually was
It's a
one,
small
one of the pieces though, the little diagram that had where you could drill down with your income and home value, that grid actually did include the security article as part of it.
Oh,
And then Grant had told me that there was a reason for it. I think it had to do with, he had to send the numbers out for the publication or something like that, and it had to be in that way.
And you did an excellent job, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
You found the balance of not just reading it, but I think talking about it. So,
And
so is that just,
we actually had pretty decent attendance. I mean, relative to previous annual meetings I've been to,
It's true.
we had pretty decent attendance.
yeah, it's about 25.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure because it was a smaller room, so I couldn't tell if it was just more people or if it was.
But we've been doing it in that room the last couple of years,
Oh, yeah?
in the cafeteria, yeah. So,
So one of the things the communications task team has always talked about is after the vote, doing either an article from the board chair of a thank you to the citizens and
Right.
residents, an appreciation. So will you be doing that?
yes, that was my last piece of this.
Oh,
Was
great.
that I was going to write something up to appear in the next Essex Reporter, and probably I tend to run things in Front Porch Forum as well, the same article
No, absolutely.
at the same time, just to hit, whoever. Some people will read it twice. Some
Yeah,
people that may be the
and
only.
It gets out sooner there.
Excuse me, the only way that they get it. So it'll be in both locations. So. All right. So I was happy about the results. Summit Street, principal appointment.
I'm bringing forward a recommendation to you tonight. In your orgs, you have a copy of the search process, the timeline that we used. We stayed pretty true. We started January 14th with developing the screening criteria and finished our site visits at the end of March. And I finished reference checking the last day of March. The screening committees and their responsibilities was also included in your org notes, as well as who the committee members were. I'm pleased to bring forward Suzanne Grunling to serve as your next principal of Summit Street School. She received a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Vermont in biology and zoology with a minor in history, master's degree from UVM in curriculum and instruction in 2000. She's also a certified law enforcement officer and completed coursework with the Vermont Police Academy in 1995. She's licensed in Vermont as a 712 science teacher, 5-9 math, science and social studies teacher, and one of the primary reasons I'm bringing her forward is that she's a national board certified math teacher. National board certification is one of the most rigorous licenses one can acquire, and as we talked earlier tonight, that's an area that we're really looking to have some expertise and leadership. She's currently serving as the assistant principal at Campbell's Hump Middle School. at Chittenden East Supervisor Union. And she teaches classes, math courses in algebra and applied math concepts at CCV. She has had 7 years of teaching experience, 5th and 6th grades at Robinson Elementary in Starksboro, and 5th through 8th grade in Williston and Heinsberg. During her time in Chittenden South, she served as the district-wide pre-K 8th grade science committee leader and the curriculum leader of math pre-K 8 as well. The members of the search team were very impressed when we went to do a site visit. One of the wonderful traits about Suzanne is she's a marathon runner and has really inspired students to run with her. So through that, she has a group of students who are running the marathon here in Burlington and does a lot of community reach out, different organizations in the community have purchased t-shirts for the kids to run and shoes that some kids would never have had the opportunity to run in before. She's really inspired her faculty and staff and is known to be the face of Camel's Hump School. She greets every child in the morning by name and has developed really strong relationships with families. Her community outreach is exceptional as far as bringing in programs to the school and bringing students to programs in the community. So it goes both ways. Her expertise in math and science will be a huge addition, and she's currently providing technology instruction that we saw a room that she designed with a team of teachers after visiting UVM. That's one of those more modern rooms for technology now. That's not the old-fashioned computer labs, but rather they're very mobile. She has a keen sense of space and color and seeing her building and involvement with students and parents and creating a learning atmosphere that's cheerful and welcoming. It was a unanimous decision by the search committee, and I think she'll be a tremendous addition to our leadership team as well. Her strengths will be a great complement. She's a certified EMT person. One of the folks we talked to during the site visit was the school nurse. And because of her background, the nurse feels extraordinarily supported in that Suzanne often helps with children with diabetes to help manage programs. Like, it's hard for nurses to leave buildings when they have those kind of monitoring of high health needs of specific students, and Suzanne brings that nurse great comfort in her abilities to manage students with fragile health needs. Again, knowing our nursing model at Summit School, it was another really good match for that environment. It will be her first principalship. One of the questions I left with the hiring committee, which was an incredible group of parents and teachers, was how will we support her in the days and weeks that come along? And so that is the same question I will leave with the board as well. First 100 days of a new principalship, I have no doubt, remembering back in the day, that your first is something very special that you'll work really hard at. And she has the energy, the enthusiasm, the knowledge, and the collaborative skills to really bring, to continue the pathway that Mary Hughes has created for Summit Street School. I think she'll really continue to nurture that environment and work closely with the tight-knit community I've come to see that Summit School is. So I bring to you Suzanne Grunling as my recommendation, based on the input from the search team. Any questions?
No.
So do I have a motion?
I'm gonna make a motion that we appoint Suzanne Grunling as the next principal of the Summit Street School.
Second? Tim? Any discussion, concerns, questions?
That's great.
All those in favor of the appointment of Suzanne Grunling as the principal of Summit Street School, say aye.
Thank you.
5-0.
I just want that clarification. It's in the consent agenda for that, so I don't know if we had to make a motion to move it to here or vote on it in the consent.
Oh, I
agenda.
had it as an action item on the agenda.
Okay, I don't know if it also can. Okay.
I think that the best match criteria is also included in the recommendation and the consent agenda that you received, but it's okay for it to be here. So I promised Mary Hughes that I would make sure that as soon as the board took action, there would be a letter to go home to parents and families. So, did you bring a copy of that with you, Ben? For the board? I had asked you. Did you give them to me?
Either I gave it to you or it's still sitting on the printer.
Uh,
I'm trying to think.
So we will send it to you tomorrow when we send it over to Summit Street School. We've written a press release
Okay.
in anticipation of your approval. And I'll ask Ben to just include the board when you forward that to Summit, because Summit Friday folders go out tomorrow, and Mary wanted it to be out to the families first and foremost, so we are trying to honor that request
Yeah.
for her.
It's a nice request because I don't think parents want to hear who's going to be the next principal through the newspaper or
Right.
something. So,
Right.
So we'll get that to you.
I'll
We
send
got
it
our
to you right
picture
now.
on it. And
You'll have it in a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, it'd be great to put after you, when you press release it, then, and then it'll be after, put it on Front Porch Farm too.
yeah, we can do that.
The same thing, right? But you can do it after, so it comes in the beginning of next week.
Right.
you know,
Right,
After
yeah.
the, right, you know.
Give a
that's
little
fine,
bit of a-
whatever, right.
Of a lead time for the other
mean, it won't go into
information.
the
Because
to-
the
recorder
Essex report's
until
not gonna come out until Thursday.
Thursday next
Correct,
week
or
anyway, for
Wednesday.
that
So
one.
we still
Yeah.
submit by deadline tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, I'll send it to him tomorrow morning.
Yeah, but they won't
Right.
get it until. So
Right.
then we'll do Front Porch
Do for-
Forum
During the
probably
week.
Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, whenever next week. Yeah,
Something
Yep.
like that.
that'd be great.
So I wanted you to know that we're ensuring the families will have the information, and so, this is where you put the plug in for Saturday night. Summit Street is having their silent auction over at the Dark Room Gallery. So, it'll be a great opportunity for you to listen to the excitement of parents who'll be chatting it up,
Right.
I'm sure. And then I've invited
Can we get her invited?
I've
She's already invited?
I think it's important for us to be thoughtful about what events will be really
Yeah.
special for Mary right now, and this is, I think, going to be one of them. I did invite her to your June board meeting. I'd be happy to invite her to your May board meeting as well, as far as a personal meeting with the board, because in June it's your
It's a
carousel, and,
Yeah.
and hopefully she can come to both if you'd like.
I would be happy with just the May
Just May.
because her ending of the school year, that's usually pretty grueling.
Yeah, she really wants to be there when the principals present their action plans to the board. though.
Oh.
That's,
Yeah.
so, but
Oh, that's the
she
June meeting,
she's
right?
willing to come to either. She's coming to our ELT meetings. We're gonna transition her in. Mary, as you know, is gonna have dates set up to help her through the transition, and her faculty and staff are prepared
I'm
to.
happy if she's just at our June meeting.
Oh,
June, don't you think? She's gonna be presenting, she wants to be there for the action plans, the other principals will be there,
In May, we're at Fleming, correct?
yeah.
Whatever you need,
yeah, I mean, it would actually be great to just,
have her at one of your schools being introduced Because
be able
the
to.
other one's at the high school in June.
I gotcha.
You know what I mean? I think it just would be, because you're PC, it would be important to have your new principal introduced in one of your schools.
Right.
To just one board and not
Yeah.
three.
Yeah.
Right.
She doesn't have to stay long, you know, we'll just find her time and,
Yeah, and I mean, May's our next meeting. We just appointed her at this meeting. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like our next, really.
yeah.
I think
Well,
we can
she
make
should
it
come,
work. I mean,
right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then she can come in. So just on how do we need to give her more time I mean, it's just starting like now, realistically, because it's like a unique situation in terms of, should she be more involved in the plan for next year?
The plan.
The action plan.
Oh, yeah, well,
Right, like-
Mary's doing all that. Mary already has the action plan developed, and she's gonna be reviewing it with Suzanne in advance, and all the background work will be the
Okay,
transition.
so she'll have a
plan.
chance to really
Oh,
get in.
absolutely. It's not like she'll hear it for the first time.
Okay, good.
And the
good.
school
So they're
action
taken care
plans,
of.
that's a good point, Tim, though. The school action plans have sunsetted at the end of this year, so your next one will be the next 2-year moving
Yeah.
forward. Your principals have been working rigorously with their staffs in the last 3 months, and you will have at least the draft of the action plans in your May orgs. So you have time to preview, formulate questions prior to the June presentation.
Right. So that was one topic that I have for May. I mean, we could talk about since you just brought it up, right? For future items though, is I think in May, we should really get the old action plans. Which what I mean is, like, I read through all the minutes of like the whole year, and you can see it in this one, is that it's a pretty good system. In all the principals' reports every month, there's a section of, progress on the action plans. But what it ends up being is, well, we did this, and there's some commentary on it or whatever, and that's great because that's coming little pieces every month. But like, it seems like it's the end of the 2 years of that plan. It seems like we need to have like an item. I mean, that's definitely would be my request, and for the board to like talk about, is that we put into the May meeting, because it's before the June meeting where the new ones come out, is that we review, like, how did we do? And the action plans are really great. There's on the action side, that one's easy. Did it, didn't do it? Oh, but when we didn't do something, well, why didn't we do, a little commentary. Why didn't we do it? Well, we changed priorities. We decided to do this other thing instead, whatever. Obviously, there's all different kinds of things that will happen in there. And then on the like, in the middle is like our goals, our like targets. Well, we're going to be 80% this, 78% this, or other things. And it's like, well, how did we do? That we should really, review that. And then we're really well prepared for, obviously, the details are being reviewed by by staff when they're developing the new ones now over time. But that's a really good, getting that like readout. I mean, that's our way, I think, as the board of like, that's us, holding the system accountable, for like, well, we said we were going to do a bunch of stuff. Okay, how did it turn out? And what did we do? And how did it turn out? Okay, good. Now we understand that. Now that'll be clear. Okay, when we go into the next one. So I mean, especially being at the end of the 2 years of like that,
Right.
the way that action plan was built, it seems like that would be really important to do in May. And I don't know whether that's, in a lot of ways, I think we would want to hear it from every principal.
That's what
Because
happens
they're the ones
in-
who can answer it, questions about it, or.
That's what'll happen in June, and in May, what you'll receive, just like last May, you received outcomes from the action plan for that year. So it's not like you're looking over a 2-year unless it was a 2-year progression of a goal.
Yeah.
But there was already that kind of a report out in May, and then the receipt of the new one in June.
Okay.
So it is, what you described is the process we use. The principals, though, are only in attendance in June. So you can go back and see, well, when I saw this in May, why was that carried over or not carried over, and whatever explanation there will be
Yeah,
to that.
okay, right, yeah. As long
And
as
they
we can see
do,
the stuff in
the
May.
PC board typically receives a PowerPoint from the 4 principals, correct? And they're there to speak to their targets and how they met their targets.
Right.
And what the out barriers were. So that happens in
Right.
June. But you get a glimpse of it in advance in May.
Right, yeah, I mean, especially getting the old one, the
Yeah.
results of the current one and then the new one,
Right.
And I guess, I just hope that it's in a way, because you gotta go through 4, school ones, and then, that hopefully it's, I find the text cumbersome in the updates. Having that much text of every item would be unworkable, we gotta have some way of like, red light, green light, and then
So
The-
when
the
you
comments,
had last time
like-
you were on the board, our action plans were quite lengthy. They had I think 7 or 8 areas that we were tracking. We've simplified our
Right,
action
yeah,
plans
yeah, they-
tremendously. So it's in 2 areas now. There's the academic progress and then the safe
Yeah,
schools.
right, yeah, I went
So-
through them all, yeah.
Okay, so it's at
If you look-
least,
Yeah, it's pretty consolidated,
Yeah.
but even so, it's like there's sometimes a number of items, so then,
Right.
okay, each one of those somehow getting,
right. So what's happened though, while we're talking about it, is that because of AYP and where we find ourselves with No Child Left Behind, ADL and Fleming were identified schools, and because of that, they had to have a separate plan. And part of the requirements for their separate plan was they were identified because as a system, we didn't have a data system. So now we have a data system, but now we just purchased it, identified what it was. We're gonna build it moving forward with assessment plans, but some of those pieces you'll see are separate from our school action plans. There's
okay, but now
another
it would be
plan.
incorporated in the new one,
Yes,
effectively.
Yes.
That's
Right.
just all it's getting.
right. Calendar.
So next thing is the 2013-2014 school calendar. And what am, is this,
The reason why you have the 2013-2014 school calendar included is because we had 2 snow days.
right,
Because we always have snow, and we don't have snow days embedded in our calendar. So every year we have to come back with an adjustment, and June 6th was supposed to be, 16th, I'm sorry, was supposed to be the last day, student day, but we are adding the 2 student days to the 13-14 school calendar. So the last student day now is the 18th of June, and the last staff day is the 19th of June.
Is it a half day?
The Wednesday, the 18th is a half day. That again is with board authority. I was explaining to Tim earlier, that's kind of traditional step-up day where kids go to the next classroom, meet their new teachers, new classmates. They typically have some kind of field day celebration, farewell exercises. And then the afternoon, staff begins their work as a PD day. So it's a half day for students, but not for
not for
teachers,
staff.
full day.
So I guess I just need a motion to approve the adjusted calendar.
Mm-hmm.
So moved.
Tim, second. Dave, any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. 5-0. Okay, and then move on to next year's calendar.
Next year's calendar, your teachers have worked, your principals have worked very closely with their teachers, and I do think we have some things here that are different in this calendar. We have your typical beginning, and the week of October 15th, 16th, and 17th is where we're looking at some of those parent-teacher conference times. They're doing them a little differently at the K-5 level than ADL. The 24th and 25th will be PD days in November. And non-student days for the 26th, 27th, and 28th. There'll be 2 complete weeks off in December. No student days or faculty days. February vacation is where the big change is this year. It typically has ended on Wednesday, the 4th of March, and we've typically had those 2 days off. And this year, there was a decision to align with Essex Town's calendar, and all of our schools moved in that direction. The high school, Westford, and all of the EJ schools will be returning. Yeah, because they found those 2 days in March are better instructional days than tacking them on to that last week in June. So most town meetings now, Westford was one of the ones that now their informational meetings the night before, so there's no reason why there can't be classes on Monday, and there's no reason why voting can't take place while school is in session. So, I'm talking about little small wins with calendar 2.0, but that was a proposal.
This is 1.35,
So there were a few gains there, but
No, but wouldn't it be the other, wasn't it supposed to be the other way?
full weeks of
Take out the
vacation.
last 3 days and go for 2 weeks. That was the.
That was the thing, but at least it's a chunk, a whole
Well, also
week.
not to have those partial weeks.
Not to have
Is
the
the other,
partial.
the other piece of what those 2
Yeah,
weeks were
that's
also,
where the
was to
gain
have
came from.
just full weeks
Right.
instead of,
So what's with the Thursday day in March? What's the thinking behind that?
The 19th.
Yeah, there was just one, we just had one. It was
The
also on
thinking
Thursday.
behind that is that
I was-
typically what's happened in the past and what people are trying to correct for is they were always using a Monday. And so specialist teacher, like for parent-teacher conferences or in-service days,
Yep.
and what specialist teachers, PE, music, art, they're saying, we don't see those kids when you're always taking off on Monday, and there's less Mondays in the school year than there are other days of the week because of holidays and whatnot. So they tried to stagger the day of the week so that we were creating more equity in the number of days of that particular day of the week.
All through the year, so there's
Yes.
a Monday in January.
Yes.
And then, okay,
Thursday.
Thursday and
Then a
then a Wednesday.
Wednesday.
in May. Okay.
So we're
got it.
trying to
Now I get it.
protect that.
It's just it's not about any one particular one, it's all of them.
Yes.
Right.
But does it make sense though not to have a Thursday to make it a Friday? Because
Yeah.
one's a Monday, I get that, you've got a long weekend. The October one's tacked on to having the Friday off. But to go 3 days of school, not have a Thursday and come back on
Yeah,
a Friday
seems like
doesn't make much
it could just
sense
be
to me.
shoved in
Can't we just
Friday.
put that on a Friday?
And it's not students, it's not conferences,
Yeah, it's
and
PD.
there's no other Fridays.
It's calendar that
17th.
teachers agreed upon with their
Okay.
principals, so,
Okay.
I mean, I could bring it forward as for next year, if they're gonna stagger, try not to use a Thursday ever in the mix.
Well, that begs the question, I guess. by your comment there, this is not changeable.
Well,
You know what I'm saying?
I
You know,
If we don't approve it, it's not approved.
well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
But if we don't approve it, you know, what's the reality of it being changed? I mean,
Right. I have a problem with the last, I mean, we didn't get to my problem yet.
Yeah.
I have a big problem with this last day that I don't get at all. It
you
doesn't
can
make-
assert your authority anytime.
Right.
well, you know, it's easy to say that, but then, okay, how
It
is
is a
it
joint
changed?
calendar
Right, you
with
know.
all the other,
Right.
you know, boards as well, though, so there's gonna be some complications, but we would just have to figure that out.
Is
No,
this
this is
following
sidewalk,
town of Essex?
Not,
How about this one? Oh,
The only
okay,
Just-
sorry.
change to
no.
Just vacations, not professional
Right.
development?
right.
No, no,
Right.
Because
Well,
something
we
like,
have
I think
some
it's like
common
my-
professional development time.
So my issue is, that doesn't appear to make any sense at all to me. So, please explain it if it does, is the last day is prescribed half a day on a Monday morning.
And in the email that I responded to you, I will refer you right back to the calendar from this current year, which we had set up the same way.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't like
well,
it this year
used
either,
to-
but now,
we used to end the
I just
Thursday
don't understand.
before. The school years expanded. I don't know where, but we used to always end the Thursday before, 'cause we had snow days, it would clog, it filled at the end of the year. Now we come back the following weekend, and I agree, I don't know how it got to that, and, coming back for a half a day. Now, we typically have snow days, so it's kind of a moot point, but we're planning for something that doesn't seem to make sense. It's,
yeah,
I don't see it as a problem because you're gonna have you're gonna have at least one snow day. You're gonna be back that
right,
week.
you're planning, but if you don't, you plan to come back for a half a day.
yeah, I mean,
It-
we're building it.
You're losing a whole weekend of summer vacation. I don't understand why you'd
I
plan
just
that.
wanna, yeah, I
If
just
snow
wanna
days happen, then that's fine.
because it's just a half a day.
Right.
There's no real instruction, no real anything is gonna happen. It's gonna be the last day with all the last day things that happen, right? That's really all that it is. It seems like we could do that on the Friday and move the half a day into the beginning. I mean, or anywhere, but that maybe it has not been discussed, or maybe it was discussed. I don't know how it comes about.
This
It
comes
doesn't-
about by teachers and faculty members gathering with their principals over a period of time after the regional calendar's release to agree upon a set number of dates, and then by these teachers' association agreement, master agreement, I share it with them for their approval as well, and then bring it to the board for final approval.
Right.
So, I hear what you said, David, as far as, well, can we change it? Yeah, you can, that is within your authority base, but I would want you to respect and understand why it was the way it is, and if you need more clarity behind it, people who do the work made this calendar.
For teachers, it's different because they're coming back. They have another day of PD
Right.
anyways. Right. So they're already coming back. So maybe they don't really see the impact to the non-staff. They're coming back anyways,
Right.
but the students aren't. So, have they lost that perspective, or is there other things behind it that we're not aware of?
I think they just count on the fact that there's always snow days or some kind of weather
You've always got
event
at
that
least one or
happens.
two snow days every year.
We went a couple of years without snow days.
February days that we are now taking, or March days now that we're taking back in February break, where did we make those up?
In December, this year in December
In
vacation.
Yeah, this year's the
Okay.
2 weeks in December.
Yeah, December.
Next year, the
is like a
calendar will
full
work
2
out
weeks.
such that,
It'll-
so now you're going 2 more days. Right? The calendar will not work out such that you're gonna take two, unless that's the plan, but
No,
next-
pull it back.
I guess I would want to ask, if possible, would they be willing to move the 19th of March to the Friday? Do they have a problem with that, or what is the issue? Just because to have 3 days and then a day off and then come back a day, I'm not sure.
I think
So in other words,
honestly,
eliminate that day off on the 19th of March.
I
Just
think
go to school Monday
honestly,
through
you can
Thursday.
approve the calendar with a request to go back and ask if they would be willing to switch the 19th for the 20th. Because get it approved, you know what I mean? To get the calendar out, but
Well, it's April, there's no rush, is there?
Um,
There's There's no timeline. It's
April
next year.
1st is usually the time we start to look at getting approval of these. I think that you should give direction. If you want to
Yeah.
change this calendar, give specific direction of what the board is authorizing this change, because this will be the first time I've seen a board change a calendar ever. But if you want to take that direction, and say either the 19th is not going to be granted as a PD day and it's a student day, and then you don't have the June 15th thing, but then when you have a snow day and you come back on June 15th.
I think the idea
No.
was might move the 19th to the 20th.
I just meant move the 19th to the 20th, but if
Okay.
that is
Just
gonna,
to-
So if it's just a request to make it on a Friday, the PD day on
Yeah.
Friday.
that's, I mean, do you guys,
That's,
what is your thought?
that's what I'd request.
Yeah, unless they have a reason they want on Thursday or something like
Right,
that.
right.
You know, otherwise it's like, the jumps up, like, well, why is it on Friday? Why not make a 3-day
Okay.
weekend, right? It's
I think because the purpose of that PD day is parent-teacher conference day.
No, it's not, it doesn't have a star.
no, that's a 16th. No,
19, March.
the 19th not student conference. If it is, it's missed on the calendar.
Yeah, maybe that's, yeah, if it is.
It's not
then-
student conference, because we just had it this last March, and it was a Thursday as
Yeah,
well.
right.
And
And it
we,
wasn't
there was
conferences.
not conferences. It's a PD day.
Yeah, conferences go
Flip your
Okay.
calendars over, and you'll see on March that we just had it on the
So that's a-
13th and a Thursday.
That's of that color.
Where's the
Yeah,
spring?
right, and it wasn't conferences.
Spring,
So we just did-
conferences.
Right, 2 Thursdays in a row. The
Oh, is that
first one
what's
was
missing?
a day off,
I mean, I think it
PD day.
Yeah, there isn't
would
anything,
represent the
there's an
community.
asterisk missing.
Parents, yeah,
Right.
like, I think that's what
And I
I'm trying
wonder
to
if that's what it
represent,
is.
that's what we're
That's what
come
it
in.
is, I
The,
bet.
the teachers and the
2 days
principals,
of-
they got together and did their thing.
Yeah, 'cause
But
I
that's
would
where
think
we're-
they'd
our
want a
perspective, that's what
conference.
we're
I'm
trying to
sure
do.
there's a
And I
conference.
appreciate the work, and I'm not trying to,
Because there's
Yeah, right.
you know, but I just.
October.
How about this, if I communicate that, move it unless it's a parent-teacher conference day.
Yes.
One's not scheduled there, so maybe they.
That's
There's
fine.
not a
So
spring
maybe it's a
parent-teacher
typo.
conference
Right.
day.
Kind
It's
of a
not-
thing.
it's not-
we just did it.
It's ADL, yeah, but ADL did. I think ADL had their parent-teacher conferences and the K-5 had their,
Yeah, ADL did, I know that for sure.
it's,
Oh,
They did.
so they did, okay.
Yeah, I
and
went to
then,
them.
and
If
then
it's conferences, fine.
it's, I'm sure it's conferences.
Okay.
You just did it, right, in March?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean, it's
do
here on
you
the other
do it in
calendar, it was
May?
March 20th.
There's something in May.
When is-
Student-led conferences are coming up,
In May,
pretty sure.
so that should be, I think,
We should add those to the calendar then underneath,
yeah,
as we did in October.
yeah, because that's a purpose for those PD days.
So you think the May 20th date is also
Just gotta make
I
sure.
think that's
It's
the
also a
spring
conference.
conferences for K-5.
a K-5, okay,
And then the 19th is the
is the ADL.
ADL.
Yeah.
And probably,
They just put stars in there.
yeah,
and
we
it's
need
good to go.
stars.
So then we're good there.
Are you okay now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And 19th
Judy's
is
superintendent.
ADL.
And she says we're gonna have a snow day next year.
Yeah.
I think we might have a snow day next year.
I'm pretty
Direction
tough
for
on
next
snow
year,
days.
I don't wanna come back next year with that Monday, that half Monday,
Yeah,
Monday. Especially with the December vacation, if you still have 2 days off in March, December timeframe won't work, you're gonna get 2 weeks off again probably. So
Right.
can we, take one of those days and,
Dave,
Yeah.
that you'll most likely have a snow day.
but you don't wanna plan for it
But when
though.
we get to that point, if we haven't had a snow day, we can adjust a calendar. Nobody's gonna say no, that they don't
But
wanna.
I'd rather plan for the 177 as opposed to, oh, well, let's not do this
Oh.
and slop a day off the school calendar. I think we
Yeah,
should
no,
plan
this
for.
is the date, we're planning the days, right? There's not like extra in here, or is there extra in here? Cause it doesn't say anywhere.
I mean, we could
These are the
take
days,
a-
right?
These
So
are the
there's
days.
no chop it off.
I would say if you're gonna take a day, if you want to put a student day into the calendar, use January 19th. Make it a full week and have students in school for Martin Luther King Day.
They always are.
We never are.
Yeah, Martin Luther King off, yeah.
Oh, it's up here.
Because I haven't always had Martin Luther King, is it? I know it has been the last couple of years, but I thought I remember a few years that it wasn't.
Right, Vermont was one of the last, I think, to
Yeah.
adopt
Yeah.
Martin Luther King Day. Yeah.
Right,
I do have one question. It seems like this year we have,
right. Well, at the beginning,
Start earlier?
yeah, put the half on Tuesday. I mean, I never got the 3 days before Labor Day anyway. Is that, since we're already starting in that week, you gotta be here, you know, you gotta be back, you gotta be here, you gotta still, you know, but, so, it doesn't seem that, and then that just gives an extra day of startup before you take a long weekend. I mean, I'm not sure how much that's ever been discussed, you know, we moved the calendar back, from way back, we never used to go in August. But now that we do, you know, it's not, everyone's here, everyone's, you know.
I think you're reinventing the wheel, and you're going against what principals and teachers have worked on. And you're sitting here and guessing, you know,
well, this has changed over time. Like I was saying,
Right.
for the first 6 or 7 years my kids were in school, the school year ended 3 days earlier than it does now. And we had snow days that would lead up to Friday. Now we're planning, so we extended the school year 3 days somewhere along the line. Just maybe it was gradually. But we used not plan it to be going to that third week. Because I used to have the same place rented in the Cape every year for 2 weeks, and now it butts into that. So it's.
So we could always change and have 176 student days and 190 PD,
What do we have now for both?
177
177.
and 189.
Well, you know.
Well, I don't wanna change the beginning of it because I think it's always been seamless with the 3 days, then the 4 days, then the 5 days. You're really working, going
okay.
back into school for the children and the staff.
That's
So-
the rationale behind it.
I like that.
Okay,
yes.
okay, see, that I did not know.
I think there is a rationale behind the whole thing. That,
Yeah,
that's
half day
one
at the end,
piece
though.
of it. I mean, if you want to have school end earlier, you could have students go on the 24th and 25th of November and have PD on that last week of June, if you want your students to get out earlier. And that would give you 2 days, so that if you wanted to, if we had 2 snow days, so why don't we have 3 and you have to still come back on the 15th? Oh, well.
That's where the changes in the calendars got moved ahead, because you used to only go
Yeah.
3 days, and you changed that because of the high school in town of Essex started having a week off. And
Thanksgiving.
years ago, when I was on the board, parents complained all the time that they had to have their kids in school in November. They wanted to go away to visit family. So
So what happens is.
you got 6 of one, half a dozen of another. You're gonna take a lot of complaints if you mess with that November.
And what happens is, one time we did that, and the absenteeism on those 2 days
Yeah.
is through
The
the
kids
roof.
don't go.
Right,
They
right.
don't go.
And then one time we moved parent-teacher
Parents still
conference
go.
during that week.
Yeah,
And that
That
didn't
didn't
work.
work.
Oh, no, I was like, okay, if you're gonna get the kids out of school,
that doesn't work,
we're
yeah.
not gonna go away, but make it a parent-teacher conference. I'm like, where'd that
Yeah,
come
if
from?
there's no good place to put it, fine,
I just-
leave it there,
Leave
I
it.
just,
Well, I think,
I think people
this year it's
see it,
hard to,
right?
but I think next year we should, if possible,
Yeah.
that's something we should try to avoid.
yeah, have to
This
be
year,
out
maybe, I
Monday.
think a lot of work's going to this calendar, it's hard to start moving pieces around, so I,
Right,
you know,
Should somebody be a fly on the wall in the discussion of the
yeah.
schedule the next year?
yeah, and Marla, I think that's really, it's like, I just said this to Jen, right? It's great, you know, because the teachers and the principals worked on it, but we're the board, the representatives of the public, and so that's what we're bringing to it. Right, so we're bringing that perspective, so I mean, that's I had a lot of people say to me this year from the schedule, about how it was scheduled, but this like extra half a day. Now we've extended it because we had snow days, so, you know, we did have to end up with half a week, you know, so, that's how it worked out, you know.
Right.
But I mean, I had a lot of people saying they didn't really understand it. Like, what, this doesn't make any sense. Like, what is this with, like, you know, a half a day at the end on a Monday? It's really not any, you know.
And that
We have the
Thursday.
same question, but we don't have the
It's just
background.
repeating the
Right.
same
Yeah.
question. So that's where I'm coming from, you know, representing the community.
With this Thursday piece, same thing, I heard a lot about why do we have Thursday off and not the Friday off? So now knowing it's ADL conference, could they move that to a Friday next year? Is that movable? Because it doesn't happen in the other schools.
Right.
But the
So
conference
those-
is 12, the conference
How
is
does that
12
work?
to like 8, isn't it? 7, so
Oh.
I don't think we should.
That's the
other thing. is
Friday
to
night
accommodate
No,
both
that's their
groups
answer.
of
That's fine.
parents,
I
the
didn't-
ones that are available during the day and the ones that are available in the
We
evening.
start second guessing it, and there's good reasons.
Right.
Okay.
We're second guessing the professional.
we
No,
didn't have
Marla,
the
I'm
information.
asking for the reasons. If
Yeah.
the good reasons can be presented,
Yeah, we didn't
then
have
it's
that
not a
information,
problem,
right.
right?
Yeah.
That, it's when we don't know the reason.
So
So
what
that
part of
makes-
this
So
now
it's
that,
good.
do you not know, do you have a question
Yeah, I think
about
That
it?
answers mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have one last question. It
Okay.
seems like this year we have a lot more half-days scheduled. This we have 6. Is that, am I reading this right? We have one in
Thursday.
October,
October,
one in February, one in April.
February. 5.
5, okay. But even that's what we increased over last year. Now, at the end of the year, when okay, I understand that, and then 2 for parent-teacher conference, but half days, I'd like to avoid those, because we're counting as full student days, and they're getting, at most, 2 hours of education.
Mike, I'm gonna have to go pretty soon.
Okay.
Okay, so.
I would just say, that was the rationale behind calendar
We brought
2.0.
this up
There's
before.
more and more need for professional development time, and there's no time for it. So it's a battle that we have, and people are saying we have to find the time to do that work. So we're trying to create something to work in the old structure of 150 years ago. And you're right, there's a struggle with this half-day. I understand the half-day. Calendar 2.0 had no early releases in it. It was one of the rationales behind it, and it was
Well, and I think we have
what
to
it
figure,
was.
how do we not, it doesn't have to be the whole calendar.
How do we
It ha- How do
change
we
it?
do
But why is
the
it- why is
pieces
it more
that we
this year?
wanna do?
It's an increase of 2 this year, I think.
Right.
I don't understand why we're increasing the half days. To me, it's a lost day of school. I mean, you come in, you have breakfast, you have something, you have lunch, and you're out at 11:30, 12 o'clock. It's like, boy, that was not a school day, but it counts as one. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just,
I do understand.
and we've talked about this before, and I thought the goal was to reduce those as much as possible, and I'd like to know why we've increased that significantly.
And see, if you want to set direction and say, next year, we don't want to see a calendar with any half-days, any early release
Where we're
days.
trying to minimize
Student,
it.
student conference days, I understand that.
Right.
Right, you know, and maybe the last day of school, but it wasn't, you know, in the middle, it's like,
Do we want to add this to our planning day discussion?
like one
With
before
that-
October, there's one in October.
We made that note.
On the 15th.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I think that this particular calendar, there was some cooperation with Essex Town to try to align some of that. And I know Essex Town they actually have more half-days. And the reason I know that is because my nephew is in the same grade as my kids. And so and I work with my nephew's father, so I know so many times he's got a half-day and my kids have all day kind of thing. So I don't know that was part of it, but I gotta believe that was also part of this, that this calendar was based on some of that. There might have been some give and take. Okay, we'll go on this day full-time, but you need to go half-day because it's part of ours. I mean, I don't know that, but I gotta say that's probably likely, you know.
I would just say that I think what would be helpful is to have the parameters in advance of what the
Yeah.
community wants, so that when we're in this position next year, it was designed with the parameters that you have in mind.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and if we can get somehow early input, look, whatever, then that would be great, right?
Next year, I'd like to see 3 half-days, your last day, your two conference days, unless they have it just, but I'm not sure if I see justification for it. Like January the 16th, why is there one there? It's a half day for the Martin Luther King.
And we could sit here and do this for a while.
Right.
Okay.
So, well, I mean, but I'd like to, to throw this calendar at us and have these changes in here. I'd like some explanation as to why they were changed. Some justification behind it. Because otherwise, like I'm saying, I'm really kind of just rubber stamping this. I'm not allowed to ask questions, get answers, or
Right.
really, put
We
it down.
just spent 20 minutes on it.
Well, but nothing's changing, right? We're just asking questions, so now we're getting more direction for next year, and that's what I want. Next year, I'd like to get direction, I'd like board support, or say no, 3 half-days.
And I think that
And
can
we
be,
try to end on the Friday. It maybe the calendar will work out they can't, but that's their goals. And if they can't do that, then I want to know
Yeah.
why.
Yeah, do that direction.
and that, I definitely say that can be part of our
Right, so,
planning.
it's there. That's why I was asking, are we really voting on this?
Right.
It's-
And that-
It's written
yeah.
in stone, I think.
And I'll be honest, I had the same thought.
Right, it's like-
It just, I agree. However,
Let's talk about their airplane day.
okay.
yes, as far as a way to be a part of it and give guidance
Yep.
toward the next calendar. Okay. So after all of that discussion, I think we've come back to the calendar as it is. Can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the 2014-2015 calendar as is.
Thank you, Dave. Do I have a second? Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. All right, teacher appreciation planning. In May, in the past, we have done a gift basket to each of the schools to include the SU office, I believe. Anybody have any suggestions for any alternatives to that? I honestly don't. This is one of those things I'm not great at that particular concept. Yeah.
This is from the board. I know it because we do stuff from the parents and stuff. And from
Right, this would be
Right.
from the board.
as well.
But we usually have cards we all sign as well,
Yes.
so,
And I can get some cards and make arrangements for them to be signed.
okay.
Thanks, Marla, for staying with us as long as you could.
I didn't
Yep.
plan on it being this late, and I've got a going morning.
I get it.
Yeah.
Good night,
So,
Marla.
Thank you. All right, so I will send Ben some further instructions, but basically, to at the worst, do what we did last year. Okay? That works for me.
Yeah, I think it's
All right.
I'll email you if I think of anything.
All right, so we're getting close, guys. The consent agenda, which consists of approving warrants, approving meeting minutes of, do I have the specific ones? Yeah, February 10th and March 19th. We had a discussion already about the accepting the request for leave of absence, but we still need to do an acceptance of it. And then acknowledge resignations. And now we did the recommendation of professional appointment. Is that separate from the principal, or was that?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
So is there anything in these that anyone would like to have pulled before we have a motion for it? Okay? Yes.
I don't think I need to have anything pulled, but just Dave Davidson is he's already employed. This is just like, it's like changing his appointment based because of how we changed the,
He shifted from the SU
To us.
it's that
So
shift.
it's actually,
That one from the
it's a
budget
different-
about the
yeah.
shifting of the thing. Yeah,
so
no,
it's
that's
actually
what
a
I just
different
wanted-
contract in this case.
Right, I
Yeah.
got it, yeah, it's fine.
So I just need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Dave,
I'll
second.
that.
Tim. As further discussion, the only thing I just want to mention is that I did notice that we're losing a lot of science teachers at once, at ADL.
Is that
Um,
all of them though?
No, it's not all of them, but it's quite a few. And I apologize, I didn't bring it with me, but I did send Lori an email, just basically asking, saying that I had some concern over the fact that we're losing 3 of them at once, and so we're replacing with new teachers. And she did respond, and she'd taken that into consideration, and I'll forward that email response back to you guys. I just
Good.
didn't get a chance to print it out, but.
No, I would have the same thought, because these have been teachers there that have been a long
Yeah.
time, so.
So,
yeah.
so my kids will be getting new teachers again, which is just the way it's gone so far. That's life. Okay, any other discussion, questions or whatever? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, wait.
I just asked you to say that you'll accept the request for the leave of absence
Oh.
with conditions.
I apologize, yes, you're right.
And then.
Should have called me on that sooner.
And then with the acknowledgement of the resignations, request that they be included by name in the meeting minutes, as well as the professional appointments.
Oh, by name? Did we do
Yeah.
that last time on
Yeah,
resignation? I thought we did it by position versus by name.
that was a,
Oh, is that a different thing?
yeah. it
Okay,
was.
sorry, just combining different ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does that work, since we had a motion the way it was?
It was just friendly amendment,
This just details on it, I think.
yeah,
Oh, okay, okay.
It's the same motion, it's just
Yeah.
detail of how it gets written down.
All right, so we actually had the vote already, which is the details added at 4-0.
okay.
Future agenda items. Let's see, one thing is that Linda Waite Simpson would like to speak at one of our meetings about recommendations, changes to school funding. And I gave her the next couple of dates for PC, being the May 12th and the June 9th carousel, and she thought May 12th would work best. So it's likely we'll have her come and spend 15-20 minutes talking to us and then answering questions. So we'll try to get the information out to you guys to have some time to think of questions, if you don't already have a ton of them built up.
We need to discuss security for sure.
Yes, an ongoing discussion about the security planning, or, just the development of the security policy, procedures, training, all those pieces that now need to be put in place and discussed.
We didn't really touch on this tax collection piece. Are we gonna be able to get more information about that?
Yeah, they haven't made a recommendation, so when they come back with their recommendation,
Okay.
then we'll be able to take action. So we're just staying close to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The suggestion
So let's
about
just make-
Saturday meeting? So how do I bring that up?
You can bring it up under future agenda and just
Right.
highlight that.
Another point of discussion is perhaps having annual meeting on a Saturday. And, what the pros, cons of that might be, and do we want to further discuss that with,
Oh, yeah.
with the trustees?
Just talk about this at the next.
Yeah, these are all future,
Great.
future agenda items
Sure.
to come up.
Shared with the village trustees.
Yes.
Just make sure it's an item to review and discuss the action plan, school action
Yeah.
plans.
That was, my next one was a review of the action plans and, the past action plan, or
Right.
the sunsetting action plan.
Yeah.
Board bios may not necessarily be a future agenda item itself, but something we all need to, okay, the truth is, we all did them. Except for, well, maybe
Now I
except,
have company.
no,
so-
you did, I thought you did yours. Okay, well, Jen did hers, I did
Unless somebody did
mine,
it for me, then
Marla did one,
Yeah, that's.
and, anyway, so to get your
I-
bio
It's a
out
fairly
to.
new thing we've done, like in the last year to 18 months.
Right.
No, we did
And then, just as far as, maybe not, again, not an agenda item, but something that we all need to kind of come to the table with is planning day items to put, to have on planning day. So, obviously, we just had a bit of a discussion about, calendar planning. Perhaps, what we want to do to recognize the first 100 days of our new principal, some interaction,
Just bring
those
them to
kinds
the
of
next,
things.
but
Yeah.
bring them to the main meeting.
So,
And then
those are
we'll
just-
kind of
Yep.
bring some, right? Great.
That's all I got. Anybody got anything else? Nothing? All right. This meeting's adjourned.